I'm planning on that house. It was like last time I put it up.
It was even crazy. So okay, question. If I were to set up a laptop right here, would you get what I'm doing in your file?
Maybe, maybe not. Just the. Excuse me, just at the edge of the shot.
Okay, I'll let it put on my laptop, and then you could maybe tell me.
Okay. Well, and the camera may move, so if there's something going on, like if someone walks up over here and starts talking, like we'll move the camera. So I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah. Thanks. I think people are.
Everyone, please take a seat. We went for ads. Guys, please lower your voices so Carolyn can call your names.
Here.
Yeah, here.
No, I got it at Senator Shaw. Senator Gabriella. There we go. Senator Foster.
Here.
Senator Robley. Senator Kimani. Senator Hardy.
Here.
Senator Smith. Here. Senator Costa.
Sorry, what? Here. He's here.
Senator Carrington. Senator Keith. Senator Dillinger.
Here.
Senator Yankovic. Senator Ham.
Here.
Senator Ferrero.
Here.
Senator Dow.
Here.
Senator Moore. Here. Senator Good.
Here.
Senator Palmiano. Senator Bullock.
Here.
Senator Sung. Senator Uriah.
Senator Uriah.
Here.
Pay attention, guys, please.
Senator Terrell.
Here.
Senator Howe. Senator Hess. Here. Senator Leddy.
Here.
Senator Bartlett.
Here.
Senator Seif.
Here.
Senator Tom. Senator Corvus.
Here.
Senator
Here.
Senator Madhav,
Here.
Senator Camarda, Senator Wolfchick,
Here.
Pro Tem Watkins,
Here.
VP Lukowski,
Here.
VP Bonsall,
Here.
VP Wiseman,
Here.
VP Lockhead, VP Dinner,
Here.
Moving on to approval. Was anyone not called?
Senator Davis.
Senator Gambardella here.
Gina Mitchell around.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Sorry.
Well, Senator Shaw. Donnelly, and Shaw. Alright, moving on to approval of minutes of last meeting. Are there any problems with minutes from last week? Senator Shaw. Anyone else?
Yeah, I put in an excuse form for
Anyone else? All right, at this time, I recommend a motion to approve by unanimous consent. Motion to approve by unanimous consent. Moving on to announcements.
A motion to nominate a new senator to Senate.
Oh, all right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hold on. There's a motion to nominate a new senator.
Name the person.
Nicole Kipralov, is that her name?
Kipralov.
Kipralov? Yeah.
All right. There's a motion to nominate Nicole Kipralov to the Senate. It has been seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Oh, no, so, can we nominate her? There was a meeting.
I'm just confused what's going on right now.
So do you remember when we put Michael in like 2 months into the year, where we just kind of confirmed him because I had a vacancy on E&O? So he was ad hoc now, and then he turned into a full center. We're doing the same thing for Nicole because there's a vacancy on academic affairs.
Oh, he is. Yes.
Okay. So once again, there's been a motion on the floor to nominate Nicole Kipralov to the Academic Affairs Committee as a senator. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay then. Comes to the floor, just introduce yourself.
Nicole, can you go down?
Yes.
Come down the way. Do I need to come down?
No, she is senator.
She can just go down. Nicole, I have
Do I do that?
Yeah. I'll just say. By the way, do you have justice here?
You'll be here at 9 p.m.
At 9? Okay.
But just so
That's cool. Okay, so just so you guys know, so one of the senators in academic affairs, Ian Chang, resigned a couple weeks ago. So the exec board has read Nicole's application for ad hoc, and we interviewed her a few months ago. So she is, as VP, my nomination to replace Ian Chang on the Senate for the remainder of the school year. And she'll just tell you a little bit about like who she is, what projects she's working on, and what else she does on campus.
Hi guys, I'm Nicole. I'm a freshman. I'm planning to major in political science and a minor in philosophy and pursue the PPE certificate. On campus, I'm involved in the Eastern European Association as well as mock trial, and I've been on DSG's Academic Affairs Committee as an ad hoc senator for the past 2 months. Currently, I'm working on 2 projects. The first is the Durham Focus program, and the second one is a project that I came up with the it focuses on introducing a public policy political science tutoring program at Duke, either as an independent program or as an addition to the Academic Resource Center peer tutoring program. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Once Justice Ross Winston comes here now, we can swear in. All right. Moving on to announcements. First, we have administration faculty awards, but we're going to save that until all other announcements are done. So at this point, does anyone have any announcements? Any announcements at all?
Are you going to talk about elections at some point?
Yeah.
Or should I?
Senator Willett?
Hi guys, Senator Speed and I are going to be in all the above. If you don't know what that is, I'll post that in the group since we won't be here next week when it actually is, because we have our dress rehearsal. We wanted to let you guys all know you should come. I just came from rehearsal and there's really cool monologues. I think it should be a really good show. I'll put the link in the Facebook so you can all click going. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, it's a monologue performance, like written by women at Duke about their experiences at Duke, and it's produced and acted by women at Duke.
Yeah, and like women and like any female identifying students.
Yeah, so Thursday, Friday, next week.
Thank you, Senator Speed and Willett. Does anyone else have any announcements? Okay, in that case, for all those who are interested in running in this upcoming election cycle, there will be a rules and procedures meeting with Vice President Wiseman and Attorney General Annie there once all applications and signatures have been submitted. But in which case, does anyone have any questions on elections as it is right now? All right, in that case, are there any further announcements? If not,
Was that all you were going to say?
yeah, unless you have something to say as well,
Yeah.
Senator.
Well, I'll just say that those of us who are retiring, we're trying to encourage people to, what? Okay. We were trying to encourage people to run, so I had kind of an unstated goal of having each VP election be like at least contested this year. So I would very much encourage you to run for a VP position, even if you're a little concerned that maybe you don't think you know enough about, the position or what it might entail. Talk to me, talk to your VP, talk to anyone, and definitely consider running for the position. Because I think the organization is better off if we have a lot of people running than if we have a few people running. So with that, definitely reach out if you have any questions.
As one of the other retiring folks, as Brian make sure you encourage friends, if anyone says they're interested in running for DSG or participating in it, encourage them to run, especially if they're interested in joining the Senate. I think we really want to encourage having as many spots filled, especially if we pass this plan right now. We want to encourage as many spots filled to be elected process as possible. Because if we were to uptake the plan that we have here, if those spots aren't elected, then it just disappears. So let's actually do that, and beyond just going for VP election, I think it's really important to have a good, strong people.
Chief of Staff there.
So just building off of them, and I know that EVP Walker just mentioned that there's going to be a campaign meeting, but obviously I can't force you guys to come to that. But if you are running for a position, I definitely would recommend that you err on the side of caution. Feel free to Facebook message me or email me if you have any questions about it. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Make clarifications, just so that everybody understands the rules, because what happened with the SOC race, we want to make sure that everybody kind of understands what's going on, but also recognizes what their rights are, so that if you get to the end of your race and you kind of recognize, hey, something happened and I don't agree with it, then you have the right to challenge them in court. You have the right to challenge my decision. But I definitely recommend that you do that.
Thank you, Annie. Are there any further announcements? Okay. EVP-elect Wiseman, will you please come to the chair to deal with administration faculty awards?
Sure. Okay, so for those of you who haven't been sent before, might not know, every year we have a series of administrative and faculty awards that we give to people who have helped us out quite a lot. Are we just doing the two, or are we doing all four right now?
Only two.
Only two? Okay. So we talked about this a little bit last week, and you guys have some time to read them. But it's the Dean Stewart Award and the Cohen Award. So I'll take nominations for the Dean Stewart Award first. It's for a member of administration who has considered the interests and concerns of undergraduates, in their duties and formulating policy in the best interest of the university community as a whole through their time at Duke. All administrators are automatically nominated. That said, we're going to go through and I'll take more specific nominations for series of administrators who want to consider. And then once you nominate them, we'll go through. Everyone will have about a minute to speak on behalf of that administrator, and then we'll do a vote. Sounds good?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have a list of people that have won these awards in the past? So we
Oh.
don't like re-nominate someone or
So
get an idea of
I checked Chronicle for last year's, and we have last year's. I believe it was Allison.
I think it's Robert Coffee one.
And Robert Coffey.
Yeah, I'm saying
with them.
awesome one.
But I don't have more specific ones.
Robert Coffee definitely won last year. Awesome represented.
you were the only one who was in.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else remembers, but we don't have an archive of who we picked. Okay. So are there any administrators you would like to nominate, more specific? Jackson?
Jordan Hale is Director and Assistant Dean in New Student Programs.
It's in order. Michael?
LB routine.
It's in order.
Dr. John Vaughn.
He's the director of student health.
The Director of Student.
Are there any other?
This is not really.
Brian?
Dr. David Pittman.
Thank you so much.
No.
I respect you.
No.
Would you like to decline the nomination?
So is it, I thank you so much. It is in my job description that I'm your advisor. And I will also point out that while I don't know the series of winners over the last few years, I have been awarded this in the last 5 years. And so out of respect to other people, I would like to decline. So, and I really appreciate that. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pittman. Okay. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Jake?
Christy Lorsap, the Associate Dean of Religious Life.
Can you spell her?
Y at the end, and then LOHR.
Wait.
A Y at the end of Christy.
Oh.
And then LOHR. And then dash SAP. SAP.
QP? Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, I'm going to close the floor to nominations now. Okay, so Jackson, would you like to speak on behalf of Jordan Hale for a minute?
Sure. Here, there.
You can come up front. I'll tap when you have 10 seconds left.
Sweet. All right, at the beginning of the year during the DSG retreat, Kate asked, if we had all the power in the world, what would we like to do? And my response was, I'd like to make voter registration just something that students do when they come to Duke, automatically. I had no ability to effectuate that whatsoever, and Director Hale, who's the person who actually helped make that thing, had no obligation to help. When I proposed the idea to him, he said he'd relay it onto his committee, and the committee gave him a flat no. That's not on the table, it's not something we want. After taking that no, I initially said, all right, let's step back. But Dean Hale said, yo, let's keep pushing on this. Let's make this a thing, let's make this happen. And after then, championing the cause and talking with the committee for a good 4 months, he convinced them to do so. That's tenacity and perseverance for something that we are trying to champion. I think it's admirable and deserves to be rewarded.
Yes. Okay. Michael?
So earlier this year, I was in LB's class, Enterprise and Civic Engagement, and LB has co-taught this class. She's adjunct for, so for no money or whatever, to really empower students to do incredible projects that they didn't know that they could achieve, similar to what Jackson almost said. So in our class, like 16 people, we each pursued individual projects in LB, and we had to go through a moral kind of self-analyzing paper, and LB kind of empowered each and every one of us to look inside ourselves and see how we're motivated. And the project that I pursued, for example, was this group project, And as a result, I tried to get international food into the marketplace and did. And as a result of it, they hired a chef for next year to, in the marketplace, actually cook international food once every week. And they're kind of remodeling the marketplace on that. And not only that project, but another project for like the Women's Center on East Campus, which that's a little, other projects have been empowered, and LB is in many student groups and other things. Okay,
So you can finish your sentence.
So she's also in the hiring process of, for the new director of the Center for CSGD, thank you, and other things like that. So she's amazing.
So Dr. John Vaughn, the Director of Student Health, has worked tirelessly with several members of the Services Committee as well as members of the Student Senate in working on various initiatives of what we would like to see in the Student Health building. And I think the relationship that he has with us exemplifies the type of relationship that student leaders should have with our administrators. He's worked with us on initiatives like extending evening hours for the new Student Health building, working to ensure that pharmacy hours are open for all students who need medications in the upcoming year. And he's worked on, with the Student Health Advisory Committee, on many issues that will affect us in the future once the building opens in 2017, and I think that he'd be a great choice for his work.
So Christy Lorsap's one of the more unknown people, but someone who's been a really important part of my four-year experience at Duke. She's Associate Dean of Religious Life. She leads all the interfaith programming on campus and has been very active and involved in expanding the different options, including the prayer rooms on West Campus, the potential one on East Campus, and lots of other things. She has a lot of really great initiatives, and she really cares a ton about students. She was my first academic advisor and has been a mentor for 4 years, but she does a really great job of taking care of all the different religious life groups, meeting with religious life students all the time, addressing their concerns and helping to try and bring them to the administration. And she's someone I respect a lot, and someone I think really embodies a lot of what this award is designed to be. And while she doesn't necessarily work as much directly with DSG, she has worked more so this year with us. I think she represents a lot of the values we look for administrators who care about student concerns and do something about it.
Yeah. Okay, so in the interest, Tara?
Are we allowed to all speak for someone that's already out there if we wanted a second one?
I'll take, I don't really know if that's necessary unless we don't have a majority vote for someone. If that's okay with everyone. If somebody does want to do second speeches, I'll take a motion for that then. So.
Can I motion to just give a second speech for one of the people that I feel strongly about?
I prefer for it to be for everyone. So, yeah.
So we would have to do a second speech for every person? Oh.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Kind of the pro-con thing.
We've had problems in the past where nominees haven't necessarily been part of the administration, so we're sure that this is all.
Jordan Hale, LB definitely are. John Vaughn also holds a contingent faculty appointment, I know, but as Director of Student Health, that's a student service, so I would imagine he's a member of administration. I don't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know about Christina.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so everyone's administration. So that said, if we want to do a second round of speeches for everyone? No, okay. So we're gonna do a hand raise vote, and if someone gets a majority the first time around, then they will win. If not, we will figure it out. We can do speeches or. Yeah.
One vote.
One vote per student. Does everyone know who they're going to vote for? Okay. Last year we did a closed eyes hand raise vote. If people would be more comfortable doing that, I think this is a time you could do that. If anyone wants to make a motion to do that. Okay, seeing none, we're just gonna do hand raise. All those in favor of awarding this award to Jordan Hale, please raise your hands high. Okay. All those in favor of awarding it to LB? Like last year.
Maybe not last year,
I nominate her as your chair.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. John Vaughn. Congratulations. Okay, this next award is going to be for a member of administration, faculty, or staff whose work with DSG demonstrates a commitment to undergrad life at Duke, or undergrad students at Duke. Yeah. Okay, nominations, Bianca?
Marylise Mercado in the Wellness Center.
I nominate someone who's nominated for the previous award.
That's it.
Dr. Vaughn, Director of Student Health.
Point privilege, was that, how many votes was that? You said if there was a majority, was that a majority or was that a plurality?
That was a majority of the 4 votes. It was,
Wait, do you mean like
Oh, I
the
think
most
like
votes?
cutting
Oh.
off and then voting again.
I mean, if we want to do a runoff, we
Oh, come on.
can, but I would say the numbers were stark enough that I would recommend that we award it to Jordan.
You can nominate her for this one.
Are there other nominations for this board? You can nominate someone who was nominated for the other one.
I nominate
LB?
Oh, Professor.
Tara?
I'd like to nominate Professor Michael Gillespie.
Yeah? Spelling? 2 Ps? 1? Okay.
I'd like to, Gary Class.
Are there any other nominations? Guys, stop chatting. Are there any other nominations? Okay, we're going to move to a vote, same thing we just did. So, Rianka, do you want to kind of speak up on
Yes, yes, I would love to. Hi guys, so if you've not heard of Marlise, she's one of the most dedicated staff members on this campus. We approached her with the idea for PASH and have met with her every week to create a curriculum. Like over winter break, she Skyped us. She was the first person who I Skyped in the summer when I was like, I have this little idea. Like, what do you think of it? Like, where do you think we can go with it? So she's been there through the entire process of PASH, and we're going to see it pilot in the fall, which is really exciting. So I know there's a lot of popular names up here, but she's one of the people that is very understated. Does so much stuff for sexual health on campus, and if you've gone to those events, you've seen how funny and witty and awesome she is. But if not, she doesn't get as much recognition as she really should on this campus. So please vote for her. She's so dedicated and is going to play an integral role in equity and outreach from now until forever, because she's going to be working with PASH.
Cool. Okay, JP?
Sorry, I had to sneeze. Okay, so I nominated Dr. Vaughn. So he's the director of student health. He's also an adjunct faculty member. He's a professor. I don't know what class he teaches, so he kind of qualifies for this doubly. So pretty much, Dr. Vaughn has led SHAC, the Student Health Advisory Committee, and also SHAPE, the Student Health Advisory Insurance Committee. And pretty much we meet with them every other week. It's a committee that includes Libby Webb, who's the interim director of CAPS, Dean Seal, a bunch of other high-ranking members of Duke administration. And virtually every change that's gone through student health, including programming policy for the new student health building, has come through this committee. We've been able to do tons of things. On top of that, it's just been remarkably receptive to student input. It's he literally gets our meetings catered. Obviously, there are tons of really, really talented and impactful faculty members and administrators who have been doing a lot. I would definitely encourage you to vote for Dr. Vaughn, and even if you haven't interacted with him personally, just because he's done so much for student health, which is obviously a service that all students use, not just us outside students.
So I know Paul covered it pretty well, but someone who's on the far side of interaction with LB as a senior, and I know Dana can resonate with this point as well. She is probably one of the most dedicated and caring admins I've met for students. She's the dean of East Campus. She literally takes care of every single first year, during their first year, any issue that comes up, she's the one who's taking care of it. She doesn't sleep, just all these things for Easton for freshmen students. And she keeps that up through 4 years. And Jenna and I can resonate with the fact that she still meets with us pretty frequently. She also does a lot of really great work with DSG and working on first-year programming, things with the residence halls, has done stuff consistently throughout the years. And as we've kind of noted, has not been recognized before for all the work that she's put in and all the responsibilities that she takes on, even though she doesn't necessarily have as high of a title as some other administrators that we talked about. So that's one thing I think is really great about LB is that she really puts in the time and effort to care about students individually. She teaches a class now. She has a really interesting research area focus and has dealt a lot of stuff with students who have grief and other issues. So she's really, really an amazing person and someone who works really well with students and for student interests.
So I'm nominating Dr. Michael Gillespie, and he was pretty much the founding faculty member that helped me start the Living Learning Community. So the idea was originally something that he had come up with 15 years ago and pitched at a dinner party, and it was something that just kind of stuck with admin, and I think that the LLC literally would not have been created without the help of Professor Michael Gillespie. It's really rare to find a faculty member that's willing to donate so many of their evenings and their weekends to just being with students, right? I think that he's inspired a lot of other faculty members to want to be involved, want to start their own LLCs, and also admin to put a huge amount of money behind the program. I really think that Living Learning Community is one of the biggest and best things that's come out of DSG that we've been able to work on, and I think that it can fundamentally change some of the social culture on campus. So this is the first year that LLC is starting. This is the biggest year that he's been involved, and again, of course, he's going to be involved for the next several years with DSG on expanding it and finding faculty directors for the other LLCs. So I really, really strongly believe that he's been one of the best faculty members who's worked with us and helped us create something that's going to be really lasting and impactful. Okay.
So, a bit of the mix-up here on my nomination. I know Gary Glass has worked with DSG. I personally can't speak to that. I can speak to how he's worked with us through HDRL more. I know that he's done a lot for students personally, much more on a smaller scale, not so much the founding of an organization. But he's gone out of his way not only to present to every RA to make sure that they can reach out to students and provide psychological support. He works with CAPS, one of the counselors for them. He's also made it a point to reach out to smaller student groups. He's always been ready to help us with programs, talking to students on an individual level and on a small group level, just to make sure that they feel a part of campus and that they do feel that their concerns are being voiced as far as how inclusive certain groups are on campus and how the residential model plays a part in that.
Okay. We're going to do the same thing as before. If it seems like it is close to majority or an obvious plurality, we'll warn it, and if we need to reevaluate, we'll reevaluate. Okay. Are there any points of motion to that? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving this award to Marlies? Okay, hands up. For John Bond? Okay, hands up high.
I like help. I don't feel the help. Yeah, I'm voting for the rest.
Okay.
No one's voting for it. I lost.
All those in favor of LB? Oh, yes, sorry.
No, you were close to me. I'm not close. I don't feel like
Okay. Give me 1 second for any numbers.
You have to guess, but you can be like,
okay.
First person was like,
Professor Gillespie?
so it must have been because I guess.
It's like a nice automatic response, okay? And Dr. Glass.
Wait, that's so funny. Oh,
And waited for one. That's okay.
What?
Alright, so it's LB versus John Bond.
Yeah.
Can we,
Devon wins, right?
So, yeah.
You said clear.
So what I said was either a majority or a clear plurality. Again, I will take points or motions like I did last time.
Motion for a runoff between the two together.
That is in order. Okay, so we'll do a runoff between John, Vaughn, and LB. Does anyone feel like they need to hear another speaker vouching, even though both of them can spoke twice? Okay. All those in favor?
Brian talk. I will. Brian.
Is there someone else? So Brian's going to talk LB. Is there someone else who wants to talk for Vaughn? Okay. So, if both of you want to come down, and I'll give both of you like 30 seconds this time.
Wait, did we ever vote on re-voting? Those motions but not seconded.
There wasn't. It'll happen. Yes, we're voting or bullying it since I showed it off.
Now when I lose.
He might lose, he will.
Okay.
But I should have won.
Clearly won. Okay.
So, for this entire school year, I've worked really closely with Dr. Vaughn, both by sitting on the chat, just for personal ideas that I've been working on. So he worked with us on the Uber project, and what I've been working on for that is getting that extended to urgent care and student health from Central and East Campus, and also to off-campus providers, and he just responds like in the same day. He's fantastic, and he's just so responsive that I'm really encouraging both of them. Great.
The most incredible time, socially, intellectually, and psychologically of Gigi's career is the freshman year, and she is the one that is personally responsible for all of that. She's the most incredibly empathetic person I've met in my life. I was on it with ECC with her, and I nominate her every single year for the last 4 years because she's
You were not on DSG last year.
Thanks for ruining the moment, but she is an incredible person that has touched your life, whether you know it or not. Wow.
Alright, let's rate it. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of awarding John Vaughn, please raise your hands high. Guys,
LB needs this.
okay,
Dinner's
yeah.
ready.
Please stop yelling. I did not count you because everyone's turning around and moving. Raise your hands again for John Vaughn.
Put your hand down. You have 2 hands now.
MVP, don't I get 2 votes? I tried that.
You literally tried that though.
I did. Albie caught me and I was so upset.
Okay, put your hands down now. All those in favor of LB, please raise your hands high and keep them there.
The Vaughns have it. The Vaughns have it.
If your name is John.
Okay, with the vote of 20 to 25, the award's going to go to LB. Unclear when they're coming, though. They're not on the agenda for tonight.
Wait, motion for a revote for first award?
Okay. So, here's the deal. If you want to revote on something, you need to overrule the chair's discretion. And I already asked for points or motions, so we're not going to do that because there was a 7-vote difference versus a 2-vote difference. So if someone feels strongly enough that they want to have a revote on that first one, you have to recount them. That is fine, but you need to have a 2/3 vote to overrule the award that we have already granted. Seeing none, John, are you cheering again?
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh wait, this is gonna go so fast.
Well, I haven't decided yet if I want DSG houses or.
Yo, Basil, you wanna fight me? You wanna fight me?
The question is,
Presentations, we will not be going over the 40% plan. Question time, or executive session?
I thought it was a joke.
It is.
I really thought
I can't.
was it?
We gotta go.
I think it would be a
But
problem.
1,000 words. But no. it's-
Serious question.
But you're, but you're an
Okay.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will pass.
What? Or go ahead and
Hell of a time without.
Any questions?
I can't even. We're being allowed.
Are there any questions? Senator Bullock?
Yeah, Michelle has questions.
Sure.
In exec minutes, there was something about a resolution on Duke student rights. What is that?
What is that?
Oh,
right.
I guess, yeah.
Why is it on the minutes? Where is everyone?
So 10 years ago, DSG was one of the few student bodies, or one of the few bodies that stood up for the rights of the accused students. And we are going to recognize.
He's talking about the lacrosse case.
Let him talk.
Yeah, we were one of the few bodies that stood up for student rights. And we turned out to be right, and so we were going to make a resolution saying we always have and we always will stand up for student rights, but we didn't feel like it was really proper.
Senator Caldwell.
Ryan, how does that relate to Trask and parking and transportation?
I guess in the sense that we shouldn't jump to conclusions before all evidence and investigations are completed, and that we shouldn't, again, jump to conclusions of administrative and faculty members who have done a great deal for our school thus far.
Okay, do you have any curriculum updates for Duke 101, like what that's going to look like?
So we are, so they're starting to narrow down like a couple of the other curriculum pieces that are going to fit into it. So like, for example, what we're going to do with Writing 101 are being integrated modules. So a couple of those more minor decisions that students don't really get to decide as much on. I'm meeting with them, with Dean Baker and Suzanne Shanahan, who are the two people who are sort of like leading the initiative. I'm sitting down with them next week, and we're going to iron out a timeline for when we're going to start recruiting students to be part of Duke 101, and then when Duke 101 is going to start being written and curriculum. So starting next week, I'm going to have a timeline that I'll share with everyone in DSG, and then you guys can apply to sit on the Duke 101. Yeah, so you'll know that. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited too. I'm so excited. I think we're meeting on the 31st, so you guys should know, like publicly after that.
Oh, and Chair, one of the things that I heard in one of my meetings was that the curriculum committee, like the new curriculum, is doing sort of like a tour and talking to various constituent groups, and then they're going to write public responses about their thoughts. Can that tour come to DSG?
Yeah, I already asked.
Do you know
So
what
we're just taking a time and date.
Okay, maybe communicate with us so that way it doesn't occur during budget.
Oh.
Because that would be useful.
Okay.
Oh, does anyone have any severe food allergies? It's What? Seafood? Or we can do it on the board. But no one, if like they smell nuts, will like die? Okay, good. Oh, you will? Okay.
Senator Curtis. Question at Tara. What's the status of pass-fail mandatory?
Pass-fail
Right now.
has been probably the single most mind-wrenching thing that I've done this year, just because it's like, there's so many conflicting opinions, and it's like, how do you represent what everyone wants when there are two diametrically opposed options? So we're gonna talk about, the meeting is mostly about Duke 101, we're gonna spend like the last 20 minutes talking about pass-fail, and we're gonna see, based on the tour that they've been doing, like touring with different faculty groups and smaller student groups that are not just our group, what do other student groups think about pass-fail, and then move forward based on that, right? Like we had a student government vote and the vote, like the option that we chose was like very strange. We opted for like 2 fall, 1 spring, which I floated briefly, and then the reaction was like so quizzical that I was like, but we will also reconsider other options. So once we kind of, I mean, we don't have to make a decision right away. We have like several more months. We just have been talking about it for a long time. So I would say within 2 weeks, we might have like a brief discussion in committee and then bring that to Senate as sort of like a final. But I don't have like definitive answers to you.
I have a question for Vice President Dinner. I know that your opinion is not representative of Dixon government, but I just want to know what you think, as Vice President of Social Culture, of groups like Duke Engage calling for resignation, immediate resignation of the Thomas Trask. Duke Engage. Thomas Trask, you think Capitol?
Personally, I don't think it's a top of this, but I just
Does DSG as a whole have a formed opinion on the 30 for 30 or the whole Trask thing as
Like
of
if
now?
somebody wanted to write a resolution saying we feel this way, like we could have a lively debate about it. But other than that, like it's not as though the executive board or somebody's gonna like post on the DSG page like we agree or we disagree with something. Like we are not gonna do anything unless all of us come together and write a resolution about it saying we either support something or are vehemently opposed to something.
That said, the resolution most likely would go through the Equity and Outreach Committee because we deal with issues of equity, diversity, inclusivity. Things are all kind of contested and argued during this. We are not writing something as a committee. I know there are a few of you who've reached out to me about doing something on your own, and we need to consider it as a committee, and we will. But we're not pushing anything forward. I personally don't think it is DSG's place. But as individual students, I'm getting involved in a certain capacity, other people are getting involved. So if you do want to, we will give you the tools you need to through DSG.
And at the same time, Senator Ferrero, if you do or anyone else here wants to write a resolution in response to the demands made by Duke and Rage in the same vein that we respond to the demands made by several identity groups last semester, feel free to, because
you completely have the right to bring it in front of Senate.
the submission of legislation is at my discretion. I would be more than happy to have that debate here. Any other questions?
Was there any thought about potentially saying something about the law if it gets signed into passage from North Carolina?
Yeah, so I think that would go through Tanner's committe, or Tanner and I were going to. So Tanner's not here right now, but I think Tanner and I are going to do that next week. I want to talk to BDU, QPOP, some other student groups that are going to be heavily invested in this. But I think what we're going to do is either do a resolution or do a letter that we'll vote that DSG will sign on to a letter of some sort. But we'll figure that out over the next week.
Any further questions?
Oh, do people know what I was just talking about also?
Yeah, that's from me.
Why don't you share an article in the DSG group?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay.
So you guys, since we have such a busy meeting, Alana's gonna just share an article in the DSG group and we can do that.
Thank you.
It was so fun.
The big thing that can't go to here,
She's fine. Yeah, it was on that.
Justice Ross Winston is not here at the moment. He'll be here in 12 minutes. As such, we'll move on to SOC recommended legislation. SOC Chair-elect Alexis Soren, will you please come up? Chair-elect.
Chair-elect.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I think it'd be great to have come on and DSG version.
Hi guys, my name's Alexa. I'm just filling in for Nikki tonight. Please forgive me, this is my first time doing this. But yeah, so this is Relay for Life's big event of the year. They moved it to an outside location. They're having it on the main quad this year. They're expecting 450 people, which is pretty reasonable for a big event that's held on a main quad. We're basically funding everything for them, using our guidelines except for the inflatables and some decorations.
Question, is this like different than like an actual Relay for Life event, or is it the same thing?
Relay for Life at this school, it seems to be their main purpose is like raising awareness, and then they hold the luminaria, which is like, that's like their main event. That's what I've gotten out of it.
So no like tenting or anything like that?
There's not like a,
Like you can't do, because like in high school, like there's like that track and you camp and you walk around it.
I don't think we had Relay for Life in my high school, but yeah, just like what, this is like Duke's Relay for Life, their version of like their own, yeah.
Cool. Any further questions? Any further questions at all? At this time, we're now live projecting negative speech. Would you like to speak against program requests? Cool. Seeing none, use a vote. All those in favor of approving the program request for Relay for Life, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, and next is Chinese.
Okay, so this is Duke Chinese Dance 10th annual show. They do this show every year, obviously. There's 400 undergraduates who bought tickets last year. There are tickets, it just is held at the box office for accountability, really. They're not actually buying tickets, it's just get an assigned seat. So we're just funding them like we always do. And they have received this additional funding, but they're putting that money towards costumes since they came to the show.
Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Seeing none, we're now live projecting negative speech. Request, anyone like to speak against Duke Chinese dance? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Okay, so this budget is a little less straightforward. Duke NeuroCare came to us, they said, we're gonna hold the event at UNC, there's gonna be 25 Duke students, and UNC was negotiating the contract, so we originally turned them down, they came back, they moved the event to Duke, but suddenly 25 went to 300 undergraduates, and we're taking auditing really seriously this year. So our committee really doesn't believe that the number can suddenly shoot up from 25 to 300. We're bringing it back to Duke. They also told us that they hadn't worked on applying for other sources of funding, so they said they're currently looking at that for DPS. So what we decided to do was fund them half the honorarium, and then they also, for instance, like the flight, they didn't tell us where he was coming from, so we're not just going to throw them out $1,000. So basically by funding half the honorarium and like his transportation, we're saying if you can get the other money to bring them here, we think that's great, but otherwise we're not going to fund you more. And just remember that if this goes through and they can't fund the event, the money just goes back to programming. So that's basically what we're going to do.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're now on projecting negative speech. Anyone like to speak against program requests? Seeing none, use a vote. All those in favor of approving funding for Duke NeuroCare, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Question, what's the status of programming account? Are we running low? Now?
I want to say, so we decharted the groups, and I believe $29,000 was added to our account last night. I think,
just comes to us,
so I do have that. Yeah. But after, this hasn't been subtracted from, but that is yeah. So, yeah. We're at a reasonable amount, and we only have maybe like one or two.
Okay, so it's not much more.
Not much more, but we're being pretty careful, and there's very few like big events.
Gotcha, thanks.
Senator, what about please come down to present the info?
We're not voting on station pieces, right? Because,
Right, so only roll.
yeah. So, the International Association is hosting World Duke. It's an annual event they always do celebrating diversity and whatnot. And it's I think it's $4,200. So the main problem came from miscommunication. They had all their information in, as I understand it, and they were supposed to go to a second hearing for their event. However, they didn't go to the second hearing because they were never told to go to a second hearing. So four voted on correct to fund in full, and that was everyone. So we didn't make quorum, but we still advised them to fund in full for their event because there was a miscommunication on the part of SRC.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, move to vote on the decision of proactive appeal. Once again, in order to clarify, vote aye is to approve of what proactive recommended, which is to fund World Duke in full, and vote nay is not fund. All those in favor of funding World Duke, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Thank you, Senator Brown.
Motion.
Yes.
Motion to move the intellectual engagement budgetary statute and the link charges to the top of the agenda.
Second. All right, there's a motion to move the budgetary statute fund the intellectual engagement space to the top of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Senator Jane and Penzer, will you please come up?
Oh, she might still be in class.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that
Would you like to present on her behalf?
Could we do the motion for the budgetary statute?
I could, is it for the intellectual?
Right, sure.
I, yeah.
Let's get, okay, Senator Jane, Penzer are not here, but there's a motion on the floor to move the budgetary statute for link charges to the top of the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Hi, so this is kind of straightforward. Basically, the link is running low on new MacBook chargers. 6 of them have been broken this year, so the link is going to pay to replace those themselves, but they said it would be really nice if DSG could get at least another 4 for them. So I was wondering if we could use $40 from the surplus, because most MacBook chargers go from 80 to 100 with online, so obviously it's not
Are there any questions?
Yeah, just as background, so it's not like just DSG altruistically has decided to pay for chargers for the link. This is a DSG initiated project from last year. We actually paid for like the initial set of chargers, so we're just kind of like replenishing a service that was started by DSG.
Are there any further questions? Senator Graham? Any further questions? Okay, see, yes, Senator Graham.
have to get Apple brands for the chargers. They're like 8600 for
But if you can find a cheaper one that works and the link takes it back, it'll be fine.
Well, we just search on Amazon.
Oh.
Don't do that.
Okay, well, we're only at 4, so then it would use 120 of that, but I mean, I'll check. Yes.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we're now allowed to protect the negative speech against the budgetary statute. Would anyone like to speak up against it? Seeing none, move to vote. All those in favor of approving the budgetary statute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Is Justice Ross Winston here? Is Senator Jane or Pence here?
Maybe it's next.
Call again.
If it needs to be now, I know what it's now.
Right, so, yes. Senator Billy, would you please be
Does it have to be right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, at this time, Senator Justin Ross Winston isn't here, and the only other option besides moving forward to confirmation of nominees, which we cannot do because he's not here, is to go on restructuring, which will take a while. I don't want to keep missing the meeting. So at this time, I recommend the motion to move the budgetary statute to fund intellectual engagement to the top of the agenda. Is there such motion?
Yeah.
Motion.
Move.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.
$60 people.
You please come back.
Hi guys, as you can tell, there's really isn't very expensive. I don't know if you remember the event that I planned last year with the student activists for equality. We had a wall up near the BC, and they were wanting to have a similar kind of thing, an interactive piece. But instead of just having like one event, they wanted to have it like like a regular thing, like an intellectual engagement wall, I think. And I had some of the questions. It sounds like a really cool idea. It's really inexpensive, and it's just a way to make sure that we're, as a Duke student community, we're asking each other important questions and like having discussions that are needed. So, for example, some of the questions that they have that they highlighted here are like, what would you do if you couldn't fail? And what would the world look like without sexism? And when was the last time you stepped out of your comfort zone? What did you do? What is honor? Does it even matter anymore? And then, yeah, and then like other personal things, like what is your biggest regret? So it's kind of just starting like stimulating conversation and like showing like the different identities, different stories that Duke students have to share. It's a really cool idea. And if any argument is that like people won't participate, like I was worried about that last year, and it was like overwhelmingly people participate and like want to share their stories. So it's a good idea. It's cheap. Yes.
Yeah, so this question isn't exactly about the wall per se, and also
Yeah.
since you're not the sponsor, I don't know how much.
I just know what Taylor told me.
So it's like, who decides what question?
I think that, wait, Tara, tell me if this is right or not, but I think that academic affairs.
Okay.
Sorry.
Like, who decides what questions go on the wall?
Probably the academic affairs committee will decide every month. Was that the answer that you gave? One and the same.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for the visibility. Seeing none, we are now in line for protecting negative speech. Would anyone like to speak against the budgetary statute? All right, seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of approving the budgetary statute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, so passes.
Woo! Running down that surplus, $60 at a time.
400.
So at this time, we're about 14 minutes short until Justice Benson arrives. And since we're dealing with restructuring, I recommend a motion. I recommend a motion for an unmoderated caucus so we can discuss restructuring beforehand.
Move for a unmoderated caucus.
For about 10 minutes. Yep.
Sounds good.
All right. Is there a motion?
Second.
All right. There is a motion for an unmoderated caucus to discuss the revisions to Senate bylaw regarding Senate restructuring. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay then. 7-6.
Things are too specific.
Basically, I prefer to change something and like go look at it all in structure, like the hybrid discourse. So I don't think our problem is a size problem, I think our problem is an engagement problem. And honestly, right now, I think we're just going for having like, we're not having a size, show 15 people will show up like that. Sounds like something bad. But, you know, that's just me. I just don't think the size is a problem, and I think engagement is a problem, and I don't think shrinking. I know, I just, Tanner's not here, so Jackson and Sean will do ideally, yeah, of course, better like to run an election, I'll make people more accountable, but in practice, I don't think that's the case. Like, I don't think it's going to make more seniors run, you know? I don't think it's going to make first years run, you know? I think it's like, I know, I guess I prefer to work on people, that's like, the trial years are here, and I'm not sure. The trial years are that's so my ideal Senate that I might choose like next year, I might change up, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. If this fails, and like if it's gonna get this, I want like the polish of committee structure, you know, make it more like committee sizes. So like you work on whatever project you want, and it's like yeah, or doesn't. It's more like the real government, yeah. So like that's how my ideal project based on I would have been working on something all the time, but like obviously that's the way I see this is resizing, and that's I have it written down if someone else wants to try I mean, I don't know if I feel positive. I also feel very weird about doing it when that's like a fundamental change. That's why because and like I also don't feel like I will try to offer and obviously if someone else wants to use that as a friendly method, I'm not going to say no. Basically, the way the world is that plus 12 hours that's yeah. Like consulting type. So basically,
yes.
She would have it definitely disrupts how you traditionally that I should think it would take as much power because this project has so and that's like that's the person who's gonna be running all of that. Like I would love to function within that structure. Get on the referendum. Well, they choose before the election. And then we would just tell everyone, like, okay, I know you're interacting now, but like, actually, this is the center of the class of 2020 now. Are we doing this? Want to do this? Okay, let's do it. Well, I just told myself we're doing the Alana. We're doing the Alana. This is why I'm going to be where it gets. Oh, so obviously the election cake is the biggest like but yes, oh absolutely. Yeah.
I like the idea of what I was talking to you about a second ago.
Hey, John.
Their live subcommittees will not have too many.
I don't know, that's the one thing, is like how do we make elections work? I just would hate this year's last to go through and like select 12 people from a list of people to each group. And just in practice running through multiple customers, yeah. And that's like the quick thing to do, is you would say like, okay, so we're like, here's a list of the projects we're going to be working on. And I think that's what we had on committee meetings and all. Because it didn't need to be like, oh, there was one time. And people can kind of come in as they go. Oh, that's what we're going to do. Honestly, these people are going to I think it depends on the community. That was me. I really don't know. It's like
Yes! Alright, I'm on your box over.
I had to go down.
Report on everyone returning to your seats, please.
it has to be brought up next week separately because that should be passed. I think we have just enough time to get it in before the election. The people's election packets.
Luke,
Oh,
Nicole,
but
Josh, Lizzie. Senator Torres, please take a seat. All right. First and foremost, the nomination of Chief of Staff Annie Adair for Attorney General.
Please raise your hand. I say your name.
I, Adair,
Swear that I will faithfully execute
swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of Attorney General,
the office of Attorney General,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the Duke Student Government.
the Constitution of the Duke Student Government.
She is a senator who was nominated and recommended by all of us to go and last night. Do you have the first grade?
Raise your hand and repeat after me. I say your name.
I, Nicole Kimberly,
Swear that I will faithfully execute
swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of Member of Academic Affairs Committee,
the office as a member of the Academic Affairs Committee,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Duke Student Government Constitution.
the Duke Student Government Constitution.
Thank you. I state your name.
I, John Caldwell,
Swear that I will faithfully execute
swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of member of DSG Student Affairs Committee,
the office
No,
of
Senate Judiciary Committee,
the office of member of the DSG Senate Judiciary Committee,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability, Preserve, protect, and defend. Preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution of the Houston Government. The Constitution of the Houston Government. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. All right. Moving on to structure. Decorum. EVP-elect White, can you please chair? Senator Jackson Silver. This could occupy the room.
Yeah, sure. Happily.
Do you want to explain? I'll just, while she's bringing it up, briefly what we're going to do. We're going to divide the question is the official term, I believe. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. So on each section, we'll talk about it, because a lot of these sections are mutually dependent. We'll talk about it, have some question time, and then we'll move to the next section, talk about it, have some question time, instead of trying to explain the entire thing at once, and then a broad question time where we jump back and forth between topics. My preference and like what's the procedure technically for dividing the question is that we have one vote about all of the amendments to this piece of legislation, which are the stuff in blue, at the end of all of those presentations. That said, if people have strong objections to a single piece of legislation, want to change it, you can make an amendment or say, I want to strike this specific text as we're going through. So if there are strong preferences, just know that make an amendment, strike it, because there won't be a specific vote for every specific line. Does that make sense to everyone? We all feel good? Sweet. All right. So then, just starting at the top, these first two changes are just very minor things that we had to do to make the Billy, quote unquote, in its central tenet okay. Previously, the only thing we changed there was we put in up to instead of having a specific Senate size. Previously, we had to have 60 senators, in fact, no fewer. With the Billy plan, by the way, everyone remembers what the Billy is, right? Get it? All right, cool. Yeah, 2 sentences. Uncontested seats in the general elections no longer become at-large seats. That's it. So if only 45 people run, you have those 45 people elected and your 12 at-large senators, and you wouldn't fill the rest up. Essentially, it allows Senate to be smaller if elections are competitive. That's it. This allows for Senate size to fluctuate. Everyone feel good about that? Sweet. On to the next one. Scroll. Scroll. Ooh, sweet. Okay. This is not super controversial, I think, since we're codifying something that is already common practice. One idea for this is to make elections more competitive, and there are also going to be fewer at-large slots, which makes it more important that people who really want to be here. So we're saying if you run for election, this doesn't get you an at-large spot, but that's something that the selection committee should look at. We want people to run. This makes that happen. Any questions about this? Good. Move that scroll. All right. So now we're looking at these powers must include the ability to initiate legislation. Previously, ad hoc senators, policy advisors, is now the term, were expressly prohibited from initiating legislation. Why we bring this up? In the event, well, one, we want to make the ad hoc thing more favorable, and I at least have found that, like, in the projects I've been working on in my committee, being able to propose legislation has been important. And I'm not entirely sure we need people to be bathed through the process necessarily by a senator on the floor here, having already had plenty of experience workshopping any legislation they propose with the VP, etc. in the committees. But more so, they're going to be perhaps senators who ran, weren't necessarily elected, applied to be at large, weren't necessarily elected, but still want to have agenda items they want to accomplish that require legislation. So this allows them to do so by expanding that at-large role to what is now legislative, instead of just committee stuff.
It's extend it a bit further, avoids the problem of having an ad hoc senator or a policy advisor have to plead or ask a member of the Senate, be it a vice president or a senator, to sponsor legislation and allow them to simply do it directly via coming here to the floor and presenting that legislation for whatever they want to get passed.
So are you renaming ad hoc senators as policy advisors?
That wasn't that previously passed?
the Senate bylaw revision.
Oh, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I missed it.
So that's currently a thing.
So that's already done?
Yeah, that's already done. If you see me spelling problems here, if I put in ad hoc, I'm thinking of it. Just let me know if it's changed.
Yeah, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, just a motion for a friendly amendment to change that back. And I feel pretty strongly that they should be called ad hoc senators because they are not policy advisors. There are policy advisors in DSG, for example, there are 3 of them in the cabinet, but like, what they do is they advise on policy. Ad hoc senators do not advise anyone on policy. They work on projects like normal senators, they just don't come to Senate. So like, I feel pretty strongly that we should not be called policy advisors because that is not what they do.
So despite my excitement about that, I remember Jay felt pretty strong a couple weeks ago. I honestly don't care for it. You don't think so?
I care very little about this right now.
All right.
If we want to just, if Tara feels so strongly that she wants to change back.
Are people generally in line with Tara? Just generally with their hand? All right, that's for them. We'll go back and change that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to find a control app.
There are a lot of spots. All right, so that was all that changes. No one has any problems with the content. Good. Number 6, once again, just codifying something that's already common practice. There isn't actually any express procedure for nominating new senators in the event senators leave, which seems kind of like a hole in the bylaws. So we should probably be doing that, given how many senators might be disappearing, especially if the Senate shrinks in size. So we just codified that. If a VP has one of their senators expelled, or one of their senators chooses to quit, which can happen, that VP nominates a person per the typical process, goes to Senate for majority vote, just like we saw today. Sweet. Keep scrolling down.
Sorry, I found a typo and I had to fix it.
Oh, awesome. Keep that going. Just scroll up a little more. And yeah.
Do you want all of this or do you want vacancies?
Yeah, better. So that's what we're now at vacancies. Alright, I'll keep going. So this is the bulk of the thing, that's the actual good idea. Y'all get that, we already explained it. Seats don't become that large. Scroll down a little bit. This was in response to a concern that I'm not entirely sure we're going to see, but it could just happen that we have a Senate of 13 or something, if one person decides to run. So I put a minimum cap on the size of the Senate, like we can't have a Senate smaller than 40. Why I picked the number 40, looking back at old restructuring plans, that was like getting towards the low bar of how big people wanted Senate to be. There are also a few like arcane things from Robert's Rules and House Rules where you need a specific portion of sub-quorum Senate to initiate something, like a 5th of the Senate or a 4th of the Senate. And this number is divisible, so we don't need like a half a person to call the House or written request or something like that. People feel good?
And this provision was also in response to a concern raised about the possibility of nepotism and favoritism in the selection of new senators. In that sense that not only any vice president who wants to appoint a new senator to that committee can do it, instead they have to either A, have a small amount of senators who actually ran for that position during election cycles, or B, acquire the approved consent of the executive board, so that the vice president can't unilaterally assign a new senator or add a new senator to their committee.
Sweet. Next thing, and we're at the second to last, so bear with me a little bit. Yeah, there we go. The selection committee. So if these at-large seats are significantly fewer, we thought we might have more people looking at who gets them and who doesn't. This was the list that we came up with based on previous selection committees. But we're open to suggestions about who it should be. We have
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You can
I thought you
do-
were pointing at
Gotcha.
me. Yeah, I'd just like a motion to have the SOC chair striked from being on the Senate Selection Committee, seeing as they aren't a part of the Senate, they seem to have no business being on a Senate Selection Committee.
Snaps for approval.
Taking the SOC chair out of the selection committee for applicant.
That seems like lots of people are in favor of removing that, and some people just can't go, okay, cool. So that's going to be friendly. There's any strong objections? Friendly.
I have a suggestion to add one, let's do one spot for a member of the Senate other than the pro temp on that committee. So someone who's a senior or junior who's been on it for 3 or 4 years can contribute.
I think that's a good idea. People have.
What?
On the selection committee.
Oh, yeah.
Selection
So
committee.
having one like senior or junior senator who's been on it for 3 years.
Or is this like an upper?
The way that we could phrase that would be like a senator with senior standing, but that also includes sophomores. I don't think you could.
I mean, you could say, another member, a member of the Senate elected by the Senate, and we don't have to say anything, the matter of the Senate aligned to the Senate.
A member with 2 years experience, at least 2 years of experience.
I was just trying to find, I think that it should be, I think it's just a good way of like having another Senate.
I mean, what I'll just point out is like, what are the vice presidents trying to do when they're trying to choose people to join Senate? It's to make the best Senate, because it's in all these people's interests, right? So like, I mean, I'll tell you, I know any of you can say this, like, our selection process takes so long, because we like argued until like 2 a.m. trying to pick the best senators. Like, I really think that the way that we operate currently, it like works really well. Like, and I don't understand why any of these people would add any new perspective or have like a different objective, right? Like, it's not in my interest to pick people that I know, it's my interest to pick the best senators to make my committee as strong as possible to make that good, because that's my job. So like, I just think that VPs and the president, I think, what did we do this year?
So this year it was all exec, but Nikhil, SOC chair, was in for several years. Just by the nature of he's not an executive, but I think like he was there.
So, to that, to a certain extent, this is codifying the process that's already there. In the bylaws, it says that only the VPs will be like doing the selection, and then if they want more input from people like the pro temp and the president and other bodies, they can bring them in. Like Nikhil technically wasn't allowed to, but that's whatever. So we were just changing this to update that status. I like Jay's idea about not having the idea about not having the SOC chair, and then having instead a member of Senate with at least 2 years experience doing that. But if other VPs feel the same as Tara does, that like the process is as rigorous as it can possibly be, I'd enjoy hearing those opinions, and we can take a vote on it after.
I'm going to speak out of order and just say that you might have some procedural issues with that, in that to have a 2-year senator, that means you would have to have a senior who's on Senate and juniors in Senate. This year we had, like first semester when you're doing the at-large process, one other senior and very few juniors, because several of the juniors on DSG were VPs. There's a very strong possibility that you have a logistical issue abiding by this bylaw if you make it that narrow. I would say like, this is not an exhaustive list type of thing.
Alright, cool. Does everyone feel good about that option? Then saying like, yeah, this.
No, it's not about this, so don't hate me, but can we go back up to the whole 40 thing?
Yes, we can. Can we finish this and then?
Yes, I thought it was done, my bad.
Awesome. So yeah, I like that plan to say this is not necessarily something for those people that things we're gonna try to do.
Yep.
Can we scroll then back up to the 40 things to address your
Yeah, so
concern?
my question is, so last year, like social culture, for example, had nobody run in the spring.
Yeah.
So like at most they would have had 2 senators like in the fall. But like, we could still meet the 40 cap if like people run the other election, but like is 2 senators enough for social culture? Like for one committee, is 2 senators like a reasonable amount? Like why are we like forcibly taking away those like at-large positions, like voting or like voted on positions are at large?
Does anyone feel that there ought to be a minimum size for a committee? More greater than 2?
I think it's don't think 2 is worth it.
I don't think that's okay.
Just like, do we think it's very likely that committees will often have, I guess to be.
Like, I would clarify 0 people ran for social culture last year.
Yeah.
The social culture would have been the size of 2.
It's fall, and then, but 0 people ran, so that was all. Just one person.
So that's just a concern, right? I think that's like.
Like, I just don't think 40 is enough, like, there should be.
And I enjoy hearing some responses potentially.
There's a different provision in the Senate file that I think covers that exact concern in the sense.
But like, why
If
did
there aren't a great number of senators running for a particular position, then that Senate seat becomes open to the at-large process, in which case we can select.
But you're taking it away here now, so that's like.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fast. So I don't know, I think to a certain extent, if nobody running for DSG thinks that social culture is a place where they want to spend their time and be able to do productive things, perhaps that could be indicative of the fact that the committee, which no one wants to run, needs to have more than.
So then why not just dissolve the committee, because like, I don't think three people, I don't know, like, clearly Brian didn't know more, but like.
Well, because that's
people
not an every time thing, right?
Well,
Like,
it happened this past year, like, why can't it happen again?
well, that's what I'm saying, like, if it happens once in that year, people have collectively decided this isn't really where we want to spend our time. But I don't, are you suggesting that we just eliminate that committee?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Alright.
I'm just saying there's like two people, I don't think is enough to do the stuff that social culture does.
Yeah.
Or like even any committee, could have happened to like facilities, that's a small committee also, could have happened to academic affairs.
Yeah.
But like, just like, why don't we have like, why is it 40 cap for the entire Senate? Why not, like 60% has to be full for each committee or something?
60%. So
That's actually what Jacob Zions recommended, which we're talking about.
Design.
You recommended 50%, but.
Well, I'm just saying 60 is like 3 people.
Let's see, what was that, what that gets, that gets us 65 minus 30 is the additional.
So, can we go back to the plan that was like originally presented and Tanner amended this?
That is completely unfriendly.
No, the version of like at large, 12 at large being distributed to the committee with the least.
Yeah, so, so that's like what it is right now, but she's talking about the special eventuality, when you have more than 40 senators, that part wouldn't apply. I like, yeah.
So, what I'm getting at is the 12 at large that are guaranteed no matter what.
Yeah.
Can be redistributed by exec to whichever committee it is.
To ensure each committee.
So that if this situation happens.
No, but then that's like which committee is more important to have more senators on,
Yeah,
that's a fair point.
I mean, I think in the event that a committee.
Like you can't say that one committee is more important than the other.
I think a committee that's at 2 is
But like,
pretty urgent to give that committee some senators.
I think, I'm of the opinion that the solution where we have a 6, what would 60% be if we have
it'd
5?
be 3 and
So 36?
I don't know, I don't do that.
This is, just so everyone understands, I was in speaking to a former member of DSG, former Senate Pro Tem Jacob Zions. He mentioned this exact same scenario that's happening right now. Whereas if we don't have a certain percentage of each committee filled, let's say 50 or 60%, or whatever arbitrary number we choose to decide on, that fights will break out on the Senate over which seats to open and how many seats to open, which is why I think that
So
there's credence to what you're saying.
we have a mechanism for redistributing the seats, but I like that plan better. Would you be okay with 50%? 60% would give us.
And then round up
38.
though? And then round up, cause like.
Yeah, round it up, but it only amounts to the 2 smaller committees, but yeah.
Okay,
So
like, I'm
it's
down for
only a
that.
difference of 5, would give us a minimum of 43, which actually isn't that different from the 41, but would ensure at least 3 senators in the small cities and 5 in our bigger ones. Can't feel good about that compromise. This sounds like general approval. Sweet. Lonnie, go.
Yep.
Um,
I'm not using the laser.
Nice.
Can
you scroll down to the very bottom? Last
Yep,
thing.
please confirm that everything here is.
Blah. So the part 2 under vacancies is what we're going to change from instead of like how do we phrase this? If any in the event hearing to E1 would result in a committee
less than 60% of its capacity.
Yeah, good point. So 43 there. Yeah, you're doing good. So, final session where we're doing the break and write up. Minimum, we can't have a Senate smaller than 43, and we also can't have fewer than 50% wrapped up of a committee bill. So we've got to be operating at half capacity to be valid. Sweet. While they write that, I'm just going to explain what the last one was. This was one of the other big substantive changes. We're not just expanding the ability to introduce legislation to policy ad hocs, but also to people of other DSG affiliate bodies, should that become important. It's like if you're a line monitor and you're like, yo, we need funding for this stuff, let's come to DSG and work on some legislation, or judiciary, stuff like that. Once again, just smaller Senate, but we still want people to be able to legislate if something very important comes up, expanding those powers. Probably won't come up, but just to be safe. Sweet, this was super easy. Alright, so once this is typed up, we'll just sign it. Yeah, you can read over this real quick, then we'll do our vote, and we'll be good.
Wait, so.
Green X and half.
So is this happening?
I'm gonna take points for motions again, because what we'll have to do, once they introduce it, they do need to, I'll open the floor for more amendments, because we do have to do that, even though we went through a process informally here. Then I consider this once we go through that process, however long it takes, this will have been the for speech, and then we'll do for and against, and then we'll do as long as that takes.
Can you zoom in?
What am I scrolling to?
Can you just zoom in?
Like, is that here, yes.
Yeah, I like
Just
that.
like,
That's good.
yeah.
So, also to clarify, the first provision, when we get us to 43 senators, working from the smallest committees up. Right, so probably we won't have to get to the spot where we only have 2 senators, but in the eventuality that could happen, covered.
Perfect.
Sweet. That's all we've got.
Any other questions? Senator Sullivan?
Is this too complicated? Like, will students just blatantly not understand this?
I mean, it's not. It's like
So if it doesn't change the way that students run for elections, it amends the process which DSG assigns extra seats after the election.
So the comprehension of the Senate bylaw has no bearing on whether or not they run.
If it's too complicated for us, then perhaps. But it's not something that senators really have to worry about. In fact, it probably simplifies some stuff. You don't have to worry about an uncounted number of at-large seats that may or may not be available to you afterwards. So run for your spots, run for 2 at-large, that's it.
Any other questions?
I just think we should be safe.
Just a point of information. The Billy plan decreases the amount of.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, the Billy plan decreases the amount of at-large spots, right?
In the
Yes and no. So like, the number of at-large spots that are like specifically allotted for at-large is the same. But what the Billy plan does in the current, in like the status quo, when there's like a certain number of seats that senators run for as elected office, and when those seats aren't filled either by the senior class, then they're redistributed through the at-large process at the discretion of the executive board.
Yeah.
The Billy plan does not allow for that discretion, that like reallocation to occur, but the number of at-large seats that were originally intended for at-large remains the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Can we input this question?
So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, if 45 people run and there's 50 seats, for example, those 5 additional won't be redistributed to at-large, just the same quota for only at-large will be in place?
Yeah. It's like if the Senate was 50 people big.
Okay, got it. So just kind of thinking this through, so the factors that would lead to not enough people running for Senate, right, to fill like the quota that we set, is that Duke students don't have enough interest in DSG, right, just fundamentally. So the response, as it seems to me, is that we're gonna lower the ratio of Duke students who aren't elected as part of Senate. Doesn't that strike you as paradoxical?
I think part of the reason, I almost didn't run at all for elected office, just because I thought it would be easier to apply through the at-large process. And I was talking to VPs here, the common response I got was, yo, you can apply through the at-large process, and if you can interview well, you'll get in. That, I think, and I heard a number of other students had similar experiences, I think what you're saying does make sense and is valid, but I think it will be offset by a new precedent on people not being able to just say, yo, I'm going to apply at large and use my ability to speak loquaciously, let's say, to get in, thus making more competitive elections that the student body would probably be more engaged in.
So all I'll say is that the at-large process, at least this past year, is actually highly competitive in the fall semester.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I think in part well, I'm sure it's competitive every semester, but I think part of my being competitive is that people here go, you can just apply in the at-large thing to get in, and I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but running a campaign for Senate, it's not a lot of work, it's not a little work, but it's just not like the most fun thing in the world, right? So if you have the option between getting in a more surefire way, and what's essentially surefire, in the at-large spot, which was not the reality, but the impression I think people might have got, compared to running an election, giving the student body more choice in who they actually elect, so on and so forth. I'd say we should encourage people to run.
Okay, I mean, I guess my question is, don't you think it's philosophically problematic that we're responding to a lack of interest and proactivity amongst the student body and getting involved with DSG with decreasing student representation in DSG?
Increasing elected student representation, increasing elected student representation. I also don't think that those things are
elected is truly student representation, right? Because like that's what the student body votes on, so that's placing a great emphasis on that as opposed to just coming through interviews, which is not necessarily representing what the student body wants. It actually more in line with DSG's mission, which is to be a student government represented by students who are elected by students.
I think it's a valid comparison. I'll say personally, the want of this was not to make people more interested in DSG. The point was to make elections more competitive, which in part can be a factor of interest, in part can be a factor of the decisions of people who are in DSG themselves and ready for re-election, or who have talked to people.
But do you think someone next year who hasn't been involved with DSG is going to know, oh, but DSG last year passed this arcane bylaw that says all of a sudden the seats that were previously reallocated through at-large are no longer, right? I don't think people are going to even have that knowledge, so I don't think it's actually going to tangibly affect anything.
But regardless of whether or not they have that knowledge, still philosophically it increases student representation by encouraging students to run for positions, because they
No, but that's exactly my point.
at-large seats are limited in which sense if they truly want to represent their students, if they want to create change for the student body, then they're going to have to run and going to have to get to know their fellow students in order to serve.
So you think that freshmen senators, or freshmen who want to become senators and get involved with DSG will know that we passed this bylaw? Or not even freshmen, sophomores or juniors?
Right, so ad hoc also solves that problem because ad hoc now has the ability to create legislation, which is the whole purpose of taking a project from committee that can be endorsed by DSG, they can still engage in everything except for just becoming a Senate meeting for 3 hours.
I also, I hear what you're saying. I don't think this is something we should be like, yo, people who potentially want to run for GSG, look at this cool piece of restructuring that we passed. I don't think that's really the purpose of this.
But what you just said was that this will encourage more competitive elections because this bylaw no longer reallocates senators that went unfulfilled to the at-large process, right? That's exactly your rationale.
Within the population of people who already are planning on being part of DSG. So I'm saying, you have a person who's a freshman. All right, I want to be a part of DSG. Do I run when we don't know anyone, barely know the flyering process, when honestly the handout's confusing as hell? Or do we find the at-large process, where you have to do an interview with 8 people, which after college interview seems like no big deal. For that person, if the at-large process, and once again, when we talk to VPs, the at-large process up until this year was something that seemed like very inviting and privileged. The instinct is to say, yo, let me not do this campaign, which is incredibly difficult to understand, and instead, I'll come for an interview.
I mean, if people don't disagree with me, I won't keep up this back and forth.
Right, but the avenue for student representation is not only, well, I think it's strange because if you look at the at-large process from this past year, the senators who were rejected from being an at-large senator had the opportunity to serve as an ad hoc senator if they wanted to. And now under this new piece of legislation, they can not only serve as an ad hoc senator, but they have increased responsibilities and duties and roles, and so they can present legislation before the Senate in order to enact change.
Okay, that's
Can I ask a question? Guys, your hand if you're an at-large senator? Okay, can you keep your hand raised if you did not run? If you did not run? And keep your hand raised if the reason you didn't run is because you knew that the at-large process existed and you figured you would do it instead of running? Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 people. 4, 5. Okay, so okay, you can put your hands down. So there are 5 people out of 6. So 5 people out of 40 people in this room who the reason that they applied at large was because they didn't want to run. And we have 35 out of 40 that applied at large for lots of other reasons. And I personally applied at large because I came to Duke and did not know about the election process. It was like the first thing that happened when I got to Duke. I'm now DSG has been very important to my career, right? So like, I would say, right, that like, I don't necessarily think that this fear is as big as it is.
No side chat.
So that I just wanted to point that out. Like, I just really don't think that this fear is that big. And frankly, like those of you who kept their hands raised, like, I don't think that those senators should not have done what they did. Right? Like, I think it's fair to say, like, I don't want to run an election, and I think applying at large, like, fits me as a person better, right? Like, if you're an introverted person, or you won't win because, frankly, like, you're not someone that knows how to win an election.
Wait, so actually, on that point, to all the senators who rose their hand who applied for the at-large position and are here now because of it, could you raise your hand? How many of you would be equally as satisfied with the DSG experience if you're an ad hoc senator?
So I feel like that's kind of indeterminable because we don't have the experience in being ad hoc senator.
Sure, it's false equivalence.
But we do.
Well, I actually do.
Yeah, then we
And so is Nicole.
I was ad hoc at first too.
Okay, I'm gonna rein this in. Change this discussion, but try to like choose people accordingly, or I'm gonna take over questions.
Can I respond? Or, you know what, Jay, you can go.
Okay, so to play a little bit of a game, does anyone know the amount of people that were elected when we started? It was like 26, right? Does anyone know this?
Like, we were here for.
No, I know that, but maybe Alana or John. How many people were actually elected this year?
This for the beginning of this year, we had 29 people elected.
29 elected plus, what would this be, 13? 13? So we'd have 42, which means you have to just add one more and you'd have 42 people in the Senate. Okay. The question that I was wondering, sorry, this is like a point of it because I was trying to think about the numbers thing here. So basically, if this were to have happened this year, it would be just one more person. That's just a clarification on this point. The second thing is that I'm trying to understand, like, you guys talk about this being an incentives, but I feel like we're just making this a more complicated process. If people don't understand incentives exist, they don't even understand how the process works. So, like, I don't know how you create an incentive where, and that's what I'm wondering from y'all's perspective, like, I don't know how you create an incentive unless people are cognizant that the incentive exists, that this whole process exists, and they can grasp it versus, like, you know, they just run and that's how the process works out. Because I would also say, like, I found out about DSG after all those things happened, because I didn't even know what was going on, and then, like, got put on ad hoc because I was interested in working on something and got into Nikolai, and Nikolai kind of just threw me on for the rest of the year. So, like, I feel like there's a little bit of, like, I don't know, for me it seems like a little bit weird how we have that set up, but I guess that's
I think that
because I feel like this creates one of my biggest things is this creates a barrier to entry for running because people then have to like understand how the system works.
Right. I think that narrative stems from the perspective that our predominant argument is that we're trying to incentivize senators to run positions because they realize at-large positions would be numerous as they were in the past. But instead, at least from my perspective, this is more about allowing smaller senates to run more efficiently and increase our functionality as a whole.
But this doesn't, okay.
Also, guys, by the way, Tara and Jay, if you don't have amendments to this to fix some of the problems that y'all are bringing up, be super excited about those. I'm open to new ideas about how to shrink Senate. So feel free to suggest this.
Don't you think that this is like pointed more to upperclassmen anyway? I feel like people are bringing up freshmen, where freshman elections are usually highly contested, and those ad hoc seats are usually like that. I don't think freshmen as much are taking them, like the freshmen fill their allocated seats. So it's more upperclassmen who would decide whether or not to run. Right? So I think a lot of people are making an argument about freshmen not knowing about the election. But I just think that that would make the election that's going to be filled by elected freshman senators a little less competitive, rather than change anything. Because right now, if everyone runs for all the positions, you're not gonna be making Senate any smaller, right? So all the ad hoc positions would still be there. I just think it gives more of an onus for upperclassmen who do know about DSG and do know that it's happening to actually run.
Yeah.
Also,
I don't think that like ignorance of freshmen should be
I also
considered.
think like all these arguments about the difficulty of the election process and how complicated it is, right? Like that's a separate argument from like the this bill, and that's about like how we as DSG work to advocate elections and really go out and table and go into freshmen, maybe go into upperclassmen who know about DSG but don't know, or like maybe not interested in running until these about that. So I think it's isolated.
we have some great changes in the election bylaw in a separate discussion, but this one specifically was the size of the Senate.
What makes an elected senator more valuable than a at-large?
Right, so an elected senator actually goes through the process and through the difficulties of navigating through the student body in order to have, is there, or their messages reciprocated by the body, and
Philosophically, everything.
Like philosophically, but we know this campus, we have selective weather groups, we have Greek life, like clearly those are huge factors that go into elections.
I mean, students in Greek life or organizations are still students on universities, so should.
No, I totally agree with that, but like,
Okay, I'm going to give you 3 more minutes of your moderating questions, and then I'm gonna take points and motions.
I forgot.
Honestly, so if you remember, the original proposal was having fewer elected senators, but then after like a pretty long discussion about having students have the choice between being students themselves is an important tenet and one to do with spouse. So we passed that with 2/3. I think it's also important to mention, just one thing else, this was the plan that was mentioned and described in the referendum that we put in a couple weeks ago in the previous elections, which the student body voted for with a little above 80% support.
No
one knew what it was.
Like I
I'm just saying, well, there were 3 or 4.
we have no empirical way of determining that.
But, yeah, maybe no one. But I'm just saying, if you believe that elections matter and people hate stuff, then there has been an endorsement of this plan by the student body, 80% to 20%, which I think is indicative of something.
As I understood it was to make like more efficient and such, yeah. But I think it's interesting that everyone here, a majority of them were at-large senators. So I think that's just like, I think that shows that although the elected philosophically matters a lot, the majority are elected, I don't know how competitive that is.
I mean, all these at-large senators also run for office. With that election saying, look, senators aren't here, I was here, every gonna run for secretary, we should go from student body.
And if anything, if you look at the longevity of our time there, I think it does a great deal addressing advocacy problem that we have towards junior and senior years. Because if you look at the data from last year, about 850 freshmen voted in the April election cycle, whereas only about 354 seniors voted. In that case, these senators who really want to be a member of the Senate can run during their junior and senior years, which fills vacancies during elections in the first place.
Finally,
Yeah, so I was thinking it might be useful if we could just take like a Senate straw poll about how people feel about this, because like if it's overwhelming, then we don't need to have all this talk.
So you want to call the question?
So I'll call a question on this particular amendment, which, so why don't we just take a vote? So if you think that this amendment as written should be passed, i.e. Senate spots that are not filled by election should not be reallocated to Senate at-large positions as determined by the executive board, which has been done in the past. So if you think this should remain as it is, raise your hand.
Wait, before we do that, no, this was the solution, like a reminder, we came up with to reduce the size of Senate seats because we had this whole argument that we were disenfranchising the student body. So just think about what you would think the alternative to this is, because we've rehashed this discussion like multiple Senate meetings ago.
Yeah. So if you think the marginal benefit of losing what would probably be like 3 to 5 people is greater in magnitude than the marginal harm of removing like 3 to 5 people who actively work on projects, then you should vote for this. Does
Not
that make
actually
sense?
working on projects, it's committee, but point taken, yes.
But consider that this amendment is in this piece of legislation as a means of addressing disenfranchisement of student voters, and yet the argument made against it now is disenfranchisement.
Can we actually do that? Yeah. So straw poll.
Yeah, so if you want to pass this as written, raise your hand. Okay, and if you would rather it remain the status quo, raise your hand.
If you feel like you don't understand
Okay,
it all.
so with that said, I'm going to make an official motion to strike that amendment from the statute and call the question on that particular
Wait,
part.
question. If we strike this amendment, we will be going back to the initial, wait, I'm right about this, right? If we remove an amendment, it goes back to the initial proposed legislation?
It goes back
So
to what was originally written.
it will go back to what it currently is in the Senate.
Unless you have
And not the actual proposed legislation, which this is an amendment to.
So because you agreed to it friendly in this case, because it's yellow, it goes back to the original if you strip. But again, it's a friendly amendment, so what JP's recommending is provide a question to slice out this particular clause.
No, I think
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
all of it.
The
I'm just talking about that one section.
The part that Jamie moved here was.
Okay.
So I'm asking if it's friendly to return this to what it was before you revised it, with the support of the Senate, as we've just been into.
That being the plan that we proposed at the first meeting, and not the original document, that being the original.
I mean, I don't know what iteration it was.
All right, so at the first thing we came forward with was increasing actually the number of at-large seats and reducing the number of elected seats to get a Senate of 45.
So I think that Senate just voted in that straw poll to return it to the status quo.
To the status quo,
Which is
no decrease in size, we stay at 60.
Right.
All
I
right,
have a point of information.
that's fair.
So current, whatever, status quo, is at-large seats have to be filled, or is it like up to the discretion of the VPs?
It's half.
They have to, so, like, is there an intermediate where maybe they can be filled?
Yeah,
but
so
they're
that was
not?
At-large seats.
Yeah, that was the original Billy that was proposed last year as one of 4 recommendations for not just resizing, but reconfiguring Senate, which would be that it's an optional, like, the exec board does not have to fill all available at-large seats. So this year, we have 31 available seats. If we were to say, like, the executive or the selection committee is not required to fill all available seats, then theoretically, we could have only taken 10 people or 15 people. or
So that all for execs, would anyone not fill their seats? Would anyone keep their seats?
No, but keep in mind, this brings up the argument Kavita made earlier, where if they don't have to fill the seats, that means that they can fill the seats, which gives them unilateral power to do so, which could pave the way for nepotism and favoritism, which really leads to the argument that was made before of whether or not how many senators should be open a committee slot to, or which VP should be able to open.
Then theoretically, VP should know best how many senators they need in order to accomplish what they want to do.
I would say let's stress the distinction.
No, but they have an idea of like how many people are affected, how many people aren't.
I would say let's stress the distinction between work on a committee and work in the Senate. It's only an artifact of the amorphous culture of DSG that ad hoc senators aren't necessarily included as like people who count. And that should be a cultural shift. A committee can have as many people as it wants in the current legislation. You just add ad hoc senators. This is about what size Senate should be, not about how committees are.
I think 8 in the room right now.
I just don't get why people are bad.
Oh, one thing, just, can I add?
Yeah.
When we also talked about like, okay, so obviously this is inspired by the fact that we don't always meet quorum, and like a lot of people don't show up for our meetings. One thing that I will point out is like, obviously like preaching to the choir, but like, the majority of people who do not come to Senate are the people that were elected, like not the people that were at large, right? So like in this room right now, there are only 8 people that ran and won their elections. 8. Well, not
11, sorry, I forgot to have these ones.
11. Like you guys at large.
I was
Great, so 11, right?
My preference would be those people get kicked off. Just like you
Community
returned
people happy.
from the ad hoc to the open ad hoc process. The same thing that you did. Once again, another reason
That's a good idea.
to be should have ad hoc senators, so they can be moved up to at large, and this is that we rise
If anything, it ensures that new senators are brought into that open at large process are more experienced than ever.
So like the rest of us would go with kind of canvas that other reforms too. So that way, if those elected senators just stop during the Senate, then they're replaced. Like, then they should be considered.
Any other questions?
So doesn't this plan allow for people who aren't part of a living group or a group that would get them elected more easily, just as much like ability to be on Senate as it does now? Like theoretically, because theoretically now all of the spots could be filled.
The purpose is ever to mitigate that.
Yeah.
Right. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. And I feel like there's been like notion that this is taking that away, but I think it's
I
not.
don't know why that actually exists, right?
Right, just like within questions.
Yeah, ideally.
So just like establish that it doesn't think that way at all.
Yes, well said.
That's why I wanted to ask that question so you would establish it.
Yeah. Same thing.
Any other questions? If people don't want, quick straw poll. If we voted that this, like, in its entirety is a bad idea and we don't want to go with it, would people want us to pursue making Senate smaller? Or are people just like, guys, Senate is perfect as it is in terms of its size, let's keep it here? Okay, yeah, and once I'd like you to also envision a Senate where we actually enforce absence rules. Right? It's like if a person isn't absent, they're actually gone, and we bring a new person in.
That's part of it.
Well, yeah, that is part of it.
The number of senators in this room is like represented the size of the Senate in this legislation. So like, this is what
So explain what yes or no means.
People who generally want Senate to stay big, please raise your hand. Generally. Want Senate to stay big.
Keep in mind our peer institutions are relatively small, but if you're into the difference.
Wait, what was
Want Senate to stay big.
So you're saying
Yes, raise your hand if you think yes.
To remain the status quo.
Also, doesn't this have the potential to have the exact same number if enough people run?
Potentially, it does.
This does give the possibility.
This has the possibility of keeping it the exact same.
Now raise your hand if you should pursue efforts towards a smaller Senate.
In any way, shape, or form.
Motion votes.
Alright, yes.
Do you think that without this, the removal process?
I think there is necessary.
Without this, will the removal of senators be significant? Like, I don't see how they have to be, like, they don't need to be.
Once again, I don't think they're just, like, they aren't the same thing. We could hypothetically remove senators and bring this on top. But the entire removal process, if the idea is like, we want to have the size of Senate that we elect, which I think is your point. If we say students, you will have 50 representatives. They shouldn't go down to what we have, or like 29. Whatever the number of people think they're represented should more or less represent them. In the event that we don't have, like, they're at alcohol, people want to do one stuff on the building. If you remove everyone, yes, that'd be kind of weird. You know what I mean? Yeah. The size would change.
Okay, are there any more substantive questions, or can we move to amendments and motions? Do people have more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm giving you 2 more minutes of questions.
So, somebody else?
No, you, yes.
So, quick recap of like how, when people are removed in the new version, how they'll be replaced is different from the way they're replaced now.
So officially, there isn't a process for replacement, we just kind of do it how we feel. All we're saying here is that let's make replacement a thing and put it in the rules. As opposed to just kind of like having replacements exist, in practice, but maybe not in law.
Elon, before you move to calling the question, just like a reminder.
Oh, not calling the question.
Yeah. In the ideal world of this world, we could still have 60 people inside, right? right? Like, there's no reason. Everyone who is an at-large right now as a freshman is run as a sophomore or run as a junior, and they can still be on Senate for that. Like, it's only when people don't run that Senate gets reduced, and that should make sense. It's like, if people aren't running, that means there's no interest in DSG, so like, theoretically the representation is smaller. But I think this can make a more efficient body, also facilitate student representation, and allows us to be more accountable for what we do. And so that's why I think, like, we've had this conversation for the last few months now, and this is not like a new idea. Yeah, a few years till go through Senate for restructure make it smaller, and this is true to the general consensus after many months of this is the best way about this information for the students, which is why we think this is the best idea. So we hope that you vote for it.
All this does is open up an avenue toward a smaller Senate, which the general consensus amongst nearly every DSG alumni, from DSG presidents to EVPs to VPs and committees, there's a smaller Senate that is synonymous with greater efficiency.
Also proud of all those who passed.
Okay. Are there any motions to extend questions? Who gets this down? Are there any other points or motions on the floor, including amendments this time?
So I have an amendment, Alana and I have been talking about. I really like it. I think it's a great amendment. Basically, the idea is to get rid of the. Okay, this is gonna sound very like weird and like just like go with it for a second. We want to get rid of the committee structure and basically have it be like so basically you get elected the way you normally get elected. You like put down a committee that you want to run for, and then you run for it and you get on. But instead of going to like your committee every week, you would basically check in with your VP every week, but instead you can go to any committee meeting that you want. You can work on projects within any committee that you want, and it would be like basically the way like the actual Senate works. I think it would be way more effective, way more efficient.
Do you have a motion for that?
Wait, point of order. Yeah. Although I'm
so motion to make that amendment. I also have
Yeah.
Point of order. So although is this quick question? What does this have to do with the size? Is this
so this is an amendment to this bylaw, but it doesn't actually affect the size of DSG. It can work literally within any like size structure of Senate.
Okay, Brian, motion? Send that up to me. Do you have a motion?
Did he make the motion, I guess?
He moved to add that as an amendment. Jackson's not friendly, or not friendly. And Kushal.
I was just gonna say point of privilege, like, if we're gonna be making pretty drastic changes, I hope that you'll do your homework like they did and come up with a good presentation ahead of time.
Yeah.
So waste our time, because that is what happens every year.
Yeah, personally, I would say I am like for this plan, but I don't think it's germane, which means we can't actually add it to this plan that's specifically about size reduction and competitiveness. But I like the plan, but
Yeah.
like, future things or
Cool, so that said, we are going to be adding in another amendment later tonight that doesn't have to directly do with size. So if you want to bring up a second amendment to the Senate bylaw, it'd be a first reading of another amendment to the bylaw, which would include both President McFly's addition and that addition. We can do that. And that can be first reading tonight, which is what we did for this last week. Does that make sense to everyone?
That sounds good.
Okay. Are there any other points or motions on the floor to amend? Okay, seeing none, we're in line for a negative speech. All those wishing to speak against these changes to the bylaw, please. Yeah. Sure.
There are a couple things that bother me about that this is enacted. I think ideally it works and it improves the efficiency of Senate, but that is in an ideal world where all the spots are filled and then you add the at-large senators in. My concern comes in the fact that the people that you can control on the Senate, or not that you can control, the people that you can control and make it on the Senate are the at-large. And so if we're to eliminate a significant portion of the at-large people, down to just 12 with the minimum number of people per committee, then you could have 12 members that may be more committed, and the people who happen to win and run an effective election, and I think the effective election for senators, because of the relatively low turnout, can be swayed very strongly based upon fraternities, sororities, SLGs, where people know a higher proportion of people, and those votes could push them over the edge. Another thing, I think the size of our Senate now actually can increase interest in DSG and increase student awareness of DSG and sort of what DSG is doing. Like, for example, I applied at large this year, and so I joined in the fall. Most of my friends don't know much about DSG. They know it exists, they know a couple people are on it, but they're not very aware or even knowledgeable of much of what DSG is working on or things that are taking place. So since I've joined, I've sort of just begun talking about them because it's something I spend a lot of my time on, and they've sort of gained an awareness or knowledge or just sort of general happenings for what DSG is up to on a weekly basis. And I think that is something that is pretty valuable for this campus, is just to have a diverse number of people sort of evolve or aware and involved in the happenings and like what DSG is up to. And those are things that I think we should really think about before we potentially knock down the size of Senate to like a considerably lower number.
You are one question. Does anybody have any questions?
So do you feel that the diversity of composition of the Senate would be negatively affected if we have this legislation?
I think it could be, because if one of the other, like back to the diversity report from a couple months ago, stated goals of DSG is to increase diversity. If we sort of take out the, people were to run and be elected and it was a more homogeneous group of senators elect with less spots filled, then you would only have 12 spots of possible, more diverse people to fill the Senate, and then that creates a whole other set of problems for the executive committee when deciding the problems, because there could be goals for diversity that come up there, or other problems that could come up and affect the choice of at-large senators that's not necessarily merit-based.
So efficiency here in the Senate seems to be predicated on the idea that we get things done. And if we reduce the number of at-large senators, while at the same time keeping our composition predominantly of elected senators, who are perhaps and evidently more likely to speak in the Senate and interact with others, well, not interact with others, but speak in the Senate because they are able to campaign, are able to reach out to the students. And do you feel that if we have a Senate predominantly composed of them, that it would be more efficient, thereby making this piece of legislation a very good idea?
Not necessarily. In an ideal world where everybody who runs and elected is the most qualified or the best prepared, then I think that is great. What worries me is that someone's runs and is elected, they're not as committed, or they don't exactly realize what they're getting into. They sort of know that you have a meeting every week. They don't, they may have something else coming up, or if they have a heavy week. If we're low on efficiency, and you reduce the number of senators by 15, that's 15 less people. Even if they're just putting an hour in a week, that's 15 less hours. So you can significantly increase the workload on a small number of people who you do not know necessarily how committed they are because they're elected by students. They've shown interest, obviously, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're willing to carry through.
Well, try not to actually be speaking. I give you a question. I'll preface this by saying, originally, I was in favor of a plan that was for more at-large senators. But in preparing for this, I went back and read past 5 years of chronicles about what restructuring should look like and what DSG should be. And there are 2 common complaints left. One, we're all egotists, narcissists, power-hungry college students. Right. But the second one, and the one that actually I think applies here, is that we're big and convoluted. And the processes at work here, the lack of responsibility and accountability that stems from the quote-unquote bloated nature of DSG causes us problems. I personally, too, would enjoy the higher elected senator composition. But do we think that what we're doing here is serving what we want, or serving what the student body for years has said it wants?
I think what it boils down to is the Senate body wants a more efficient body that is able to produce more tangible things that they're able to say or see that DSG did. And while that may seem like fewer people are more committed, I don't think I don't think that that is something that is, the risk of having a smaller Senate with less committed people, to me outweighs the benefit of maybe having a smaller Senate with more committed people, because you know with the at-large process that you're sort of able to control, not control, but you're sort of able to shape the Senate and have more committed people that you have personal relationships with and know that they're willing to work harder and they're, they can persevere and work on many projects at one time, be Duke students and also work on Senate and do this and that, because we're also busy. So because of that, I think the student body really just wants more efficient thing. I think we all have a better knowledge of actually what would make Senate more efficient than the student body.
You just hinted to that we all have an idea of like what would make DSG more efficient. Like, what would your ideal idea like make DSG more efficient under this?
I don't know that I have a restructuring proposition. I do sort of agree, though, as some people said in this meeting, that if we're stricter with people who aren't showing up, or just general absences of people, not apathetic, but that Senate is not as high a priority, and you replace them with people, if it's coming from the ad hoc, or I guess now policy advisor, there are ways to make sure that the people who are in Senate are held accountable, and that they're committed and working hard and know what they're supposed to be doing, and are sort of upholding their end of the bargain to students.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up question? Given that, like, say that we do next year, kind of gear up and do a much better job of like being forceful about attendance, what would the difference in your mind be between these two plans if we were to do that? Assuming that, say, like we have, going with this Billy plan, we get like 50 senators or something like that, like, or 50 people on Senate, and then we, like 10 of them don't show up, and then we essentially just like get 10 more at-large people to replace them. Like, what would the difference be with that and like what's going on right now that like is so troubling to you?
I'm not sure if this is the answer you're looking for, but I think if you're holding people more accountable, I think that having a few more people, whether that's 10 or 15, depending on how many people run, sort of gives DSG a wider scope and a wider array of things that people can do in places they can reach. I mean, we're all Duke students, so we're obviously studying at school a lot, and I don't think the additional 5 to 10, or if it's 43 is the minimum and 60 is the maximum, 17 people really inhibit the quality of debate and conversation we have in here, especially if people are accountable and they go to their meetings and VPs sort of lay out what's going to happen in the Senate, people come prepared, and there's sort of, a better, presentations are better, and people sort of come into the debate with better ideas, so instead of trying to figure out what's actually happening, they sort of know. And I think that's the way that makes it more efficient instead of just sizing down the population.
Thanks.
So how much smaller can we, and maybe this is out of order, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to ask this to you, but like, how many people do we think will like Senate realistically be reduced by if this plan were to go through, right? The plan that you're arguing against? 5, maybe?
Didn't we say there were only 21 elected senators for this year?
No, this year there will be 43 senators.
This year there would be?
Yeah.
So what would that be a reduction of?
17.
That would be the absolute minimum, though.
Okay, so 17 would be the absolute minimum. So say it is 17, like best case scenario for you, right, is 17. Do we really think that that would like radically enhance the efficiency of these general body meetings if we lost like at most 17 people? I like really don't think so. Like a row and a half of Senate in this room is gone. Like our proceedings are really going to change that drastically.
I think you potentially hinder it even more if you only have 14, and those 14 aren't all in, super committed. Because if you're showing up to a meeting with 43 people, but you only have 30 people who are working hard, you've significantly undermined the efforts of Senate because you have fewer people actually doing what they're supposed to be doing and sort of, doing their work and producing what they're supposed to produce. You have fewer people just capable of doing that.
So I thought it was actually kind of interesting when people asked if you were, for all the at-large people that were in the room, if you were ad hoc, would you still find this useful to still do it? And like literally everyone put their hands down. So I'm wondering what your thought process is about the argument that, we could do this, it'll shift the size of the Senate, and then those people that would essentially not have a role or might not get on, to do ad hoc, and because they would be allowed to introduce legislation, therefore, like, it makes it a worthwhile.
I'm skeptical. So if you come back ad hoc, and you've been involved in the Senate before, you sort of understand what the legislation is and how the process works. If you haven't been in the Senate, being an ad hoc senator would make, I just think it would make producing legislation not near impossible, you wouldn't have to, you sort of wouldn't understand what to do. So unless it's a junior coming back from abroad or somebody who lost an election and didn't get at large and then now they're ad hoc, I don't think giving them that ability to radically change their role in the Senate if they don't understand how Senate functions and what they're supposed to do and what legislation can do.
Do we give any philosophical credence to the act of election?
Your philosophical credence to the actual
to the act of election. So like I'm with you 100%. But like just based on the poll that Tara ran, the appointed senators, the at-large senators, are here in this meeting and the elections are. And I am a 100% proponent of having, whoever wants to do the job do it. But I think there is something philosophically important about having elections and having the people who you elect represent you. Is that something we really just throw by the wayside?
I don't think the current Senate throws that by the wayside. You still have the same number of elected people, but with people not running, I don't think.
But not here we have, right?
Sorry?
Here we have 8, or 11, sorry, we have 11 elected. We have half of the people who were actually elected.
Right, and I think that's a factor of a number of things which can be traced back to the said, not necessarily holding senators accountable, which is a different issue entirely. I don't think staying with our current plan throws away student voice per se, because everybody that's running there still would be an election for, and you would just be filling additional spots with elected people, filling additional spots with people that you think are qualified or worthy or have their spot on the Senate.
Are there any other questions?
Do you think that this could be a good opportunity to try out a smaller Senate? Because if there's like so much passion in the student body for enough people to run to fill the spots, and then we'd have the designated ad hoc spots, we'd still have as large of a Senate as we do right now, but we might see how the Senate is if it's a little smaller, if there are a few less people who run. Like there's been so many suggestions on how to restructure, and a lot of the numbers end up being arbitrary, and if these numbers end up being exactly what it is now, or just a number that's a little smaller, reflecting the excitement of the student body, whether or not to be in Senate, it seems like a really good way to find a number, rather than arbitrarily, having committees because you want to try out a smaller Senate. It just it seems like a really cool opportunity to see how that would work.
Sort of. I just don't think that a full year Senate, meaning if we were to drop down, I keep using 43 because that's a minimum. If you were to drop down to 43 and that turned out to be ineffective or not be able to accomplish enough, I don't think that 25% of a student's student career should be sort of decided based upon an experiment or just a test run of a system for Senate that we don't know how it would go. Because you could severely limit the project's programming ability of Senate if it turned out to be less effective because of a variety of reasons.
So philosophically, you believe a smaller government is
In the
Please remember to frame your questions in the context of DSG. Okay, finish laughing, raise it in. Other questions? Lizzie, then Jen.
Could the ad hoc senators that would be chosen for people who were really qualified in interviews, but there weren't enough spaces for them at the at-large process to become ad hoc senators, could their manpower on projects make up for that potential loss, whereas not hindering the efficiency of actual Senate meetings, so they wouldn't be in Senate meetings, but they could still be there for projects?
potentially, I think it definitely could sort of substitute in terms of, like you said, project and programming wise. I'm just skeptical of how efficient or effective an ad hoc senator could be in Senate if they haven't applied for it. They're going to be just as qualified or able to help on projects because there's nothing inherently about the senator that qualifies you for that. But if part of the deal why we're going to this ad hoc movement because they now have legislative abilities, I don't think that necessarily, you just have fewer minds who are able to think of the legislature or do it because an ad hoc senator wouldn't necessarily understand how proceedings happen in the Senate because they wouldn't have been involved in it before unless they had lost election and not been selected at large or coming back from abroad or something like that.
Okay, we have time for one more question. You can choose your.
So I just wanted to point out that I think the aforementioned excitement of the student body to elect their DSG representatives needs to be more reflected in the numbers of our voter turnout before we give it so much credibility in this philosophical.
Excitement of the people to run, not to vote.
I mean, people are excited with the cancer running. Then elections don't matter. Then why so like people don't care about people running. If people running don't make effort to really get excited, if people come out and vote, then it's not gonna work.
Okay, so that wasn't a question framed towards speaker. So do you want to rephrase that as a question? Okay. All right. Are there any points you want us to extend this question time? Okay. Seeing none, you can go ahead and sit down. And are there? I'll take points or motions this time. JP.
Yeah. So the motion that I believe was friendly based on the straw poll, I don't think ended up going through. So can we? And that just to remind everyone. So Senate voted as a majority in favor of returning that amendment to the status quo, i.e. making it so that Senate seats not filled by election are reallocated to at-large positions.
Okay. That was friendly. Jackson. This is one where we kind of took a straw poll and then it was never answered.
Whether, I mean, I think it passes either way. I personally say I'm friendly, but it passes, so it'll be fine.
Okay.
We're going to have to cut out a few more parts of it.
Yeah. So basically what that's going to do is, hold on, I'm opening it up on this computer that I can actually use.
Just for expediency, say it's.
Yeah, guys.
We did the straw poll earlier.
Okay, so just. Yeah.
Are we in line for like
You're going to be in line for another, we're doing positive and negatives now, and I'm going to take a quick vote. Okay. Thank you. So we're taking away this whole 43 senator thing and going back, yes? What?
Isn't this 40, but taking that away,
that fundamentally changes.
That's the point of the whole thing then.
Yeah, we just had like 30 minutes of debate about this.
About this, yeah.
We should vote.
We should vote.
Okay, so we are in line for a protected positive speech, or for a positive speech and then a negative speech. Does anyone want to make a positive speech, or we can move to a vote? I will take my vote. Basil.
Can I make a positive speech?
Yeah.
Defend it, yes.
I'm gonna start timing pretty strictly.
Yeah.
Bill. A minute to speak and then a minute of questions.
So I wrote down a couple of reasons. So I've been here for 3 years, I've been a senator for 3 years. Literally every year we have the conversation about we need to make DSG smaller, we need to make DSG smaller because we need to make it more effective. And literally every single year there are like a couple of hesitations to the point that literally the entire Senate votes against any plan that we have to make Senate smaller. I think that we need to, and there are a couple of reasons why. I think it makes it easier for new senators, for freshmen and sophomores to speak in a smaller Senate. I also think that it forces senators that would normally hide in the crowd to be like active parts of Senate, be able to like talk and like engage and all that stuff. I also think it would change the perception of DSG in the students' eyes. Like not only would we be inherently more efficient in my opinion, but people who, so I think that there's a tendency for a lot of people who kind of just like see DSG and want to run for DSG, just kind of do it on whimsy. But when there are smaller amount of senators, there's like more responsibility, and people are going to be less likely to run on whimsy when there's more responsibility and when there's more like, more prestige. Yeah.
Okay. You have a minute to answer questions and write questions.
So, one perception, I'm speaking as a large center as well, that I've gotten from students, that DSG is a club filled mostly by large people, and the elected senators don't really like have much to say. Don't you think it might be kind of important to the reputation of DSG as an institution that elected senators work on more of what DSG does, and if they don't exist, DSG does less, and you should run? Don't you think it kind of increases DSG's reputation?
Yeah, no, I mean, wait. I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, is that a softball? Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I thought you were disagreeing. Yeah.
If only the minimum run, or not even the minimum, but if less than the maximum, whatever the 42 or 43, I think it is, just people running for committees, and that's up to the student body. And that, like, I think that's very subject to, like, groups on campus have the potential to put specific people in office just because they know that. And say a quarter of those people, or just 5 or 10, are not qualified or committed, then it's a smaller Senate, so a large proportion of the Senate would not be efficient. Do you think Senate can overcome that and be more efficient, or do you think that would significantly impairs the Senate's ability to accomplish things throughout the year?
Yeah, so two things. I think inherently a smaller Senate would like force elected senators of that nature to like have to be more active, have to be more vocal in Senate, because literally they it's not like a 60-person Senate anymore. It's like a 25 or not 25. It's like any given meeting there could be like 30, 35 people at Senate, and literally like you become like way more important as an individual senator when there's less people, which forces you to take on more responsibility, which forces you to be more proactive. I also think that, like you were saying up here earlier, like it's not that hard for us to be stricter about attendance policy, and if there are elected senators who aren't coming to Senate anymore, we use at large the way it should be used. We bring senators who actually or students who actually care about being on Senate and making a difference, who didn't get elected or didn't run, to be able to be on Senate.
Cool. Okay, time for questions is up, and we're going to take another negative speaker now. If there's anyone negative to speak. Does anyone want to speak against the button?
Well, so I mean, I feel like I don't want to. I feel like I've talked a lot already, so I don't. Do you want to?
Yeah. You can connect your speech if you want to. It's a minute and then another.
Point of parliamentary procedure, by the way.
Yeah.
Is this the speeches here, and actually the vote that comes after, on an amendment to strike the Billy part from the overall amendment that we're bringing?
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. When it comes time that we're going to vote, the changes that are on this, at the moment, the Billy is the major substantive change. The other changes in this amendment codify things that are already in practice. So say we choose to not pass the Billy, you can still choose to pass things that say someone leaves Senate halfway through the semester, now we can fill it and they just have to be confirmed by the Senate, like we did for Nicole literally 2 hours ago. So we can still pass that if we don't pass the Billy. We're going to divide the question, which means we're going to vote essentially section by section to approve this through. So when we are ready to vote, I'm going to call for a motion to divide the question to do that. So it doesn't matter if you support half of this, not the other half, you can vote that way. So you can pass the non-substantive changes without passing the Billy. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's it. Is there anyone wishing to speak against, essentially against the Billy? Yeah. Is there? We're on line for a negative speech.
I can do it this time. Okay. All right. So the reason why I think something like this is really okay. So I get the point that people say like, well, every time something happens, someone has a problem, and then everyone just decides not to vote for some plan. But I think in this case, very specifically, there's a reason why it hasn't passed in the past, and it shouldn't pass tonight. I think there's one thing So there's a couple things that I like to think about principle-wise. One of which is that I think a legislative body should have a consistent size every year, not based on who's running. It's not like this is not demand, like this isn't economics, or like we want the demand up, so we make the Senate bigger, and then like when the demand's less, we make the Senate smaller. That feels kind of like counterintuitive to me. The second thing is that I don't think we're actually addressing the problem. I think we're using this as like a tangential way of saying we're creating incentives, but we're not actually saying like, this is how we're making Senate more efficient. We're just aligning the concept that like smaller equals more efficient, which I guess in some ways makes some sense, but like with the numbers we're talking about here, I don't really see how it does. All I see is that we might actually be limiting the amount of people in here, the power that DSG has from the plurality of people, 60 people that are in it, to actually go and do things. So we can do and take on lots of different projects, and people can have really niche areas. When your Senate is smaller, and my biggest like point of thought process was when we asked all the people who were at large, if you were ad hoc, would you still do it? And no one put their hand up. I think that speaks very clearly to the role that ad hoc really isn't that a rewarding experience, even if you say you can propose legislation. So lots of issues that I personally have with this, and I just think that if we're going to do it, we should have this number cap, but in general, I don't think it's the best. Doesn't solve it.
Any questions for Jay? Jason?
Do you think that if someone isn't comfortable speaking up in front of 55 or 60 people, they're magically going to start feeling comfortable talking in front of 45 or 50 people?
I mean, this is like a room of 40-some odd people right now, so if you're not feeling comfortable talking in this setting, like that's what you're gonna get. I think also you run into similar problems. Another point that I was gonna make before my time cut out. I think you run into the similar problem of like people will always have excuses and whatever else, and so like when your Senate size is already smaller, then the people who actually be attending a meeting is gonna be smaller too. Like we can't expect that like every single meeting, every single person is gonna show up. Things happen, like life exists, and there are other things beyond DSG. So that's my other point is I think like it's okay that we're bigger than we have like 40 people here because that's okay that like 15 people have other things they can do tonight. But yeah, I don't think that changes the other problem. John.
Do you feel the
You have 10 seconds to answer this question.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you feel the permanence of the fixed number of senators here in DSG under the status quo has any effect on progression or efficiency of the whole?
What do you mean by that?
Do you feel that 60 senators here in the status quo has any effect on our efficiency?
I think you need 12 good senators to run a meeting, like 12 people super engaged to do it. And you don't need everybody always engaged to actually make a meeting run. I think if 60 people were all yelling at each other, we'd get nothing done, but that's not how life works. But I think having 60 people is more for the power of DSG projects and advocacy, and have a more broader representation, more students on campus.
Okay, we are in line for a positive speech. Before I take speakers for a positive speech, I will take points or motions. Are there any points or motions on the floor? That is in order. All those in favor of moving to voting on this bylaw, please raise your hands or say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we are going to vote on this. So, like I said, please be quiet.
Wait, a lot of point of information.
Yes.
Are we voting on the bylaw as a whole, or just the individual part of the?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is vote essentially step by step. Someone needs to move to divide the question, but I will be one of you do that. So the first thing, we're gonna go just kind of down because it doesn't really get controversial until we get to the bill. Everything else is, like I said, just a way of codifying what already is in like DSG practice. So what we'll do is divide the question and vote section by section, and it'll be like an upvote or a downvote for each section. And then we'll get to Billy, same thing, upvote or downvote on Billy, and that'll be how it goes. So it's as if this was, 4 different introductions rather than just one. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so we're gonna do that. So I would strongly look favorably upon a motion to divide the question. Okay, that's an order. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go through and essentially vote every section to approve or deny the changes. Okay? So the first thing we're going to vote on is section 2, which is so this is just a flexible Senate size, so it adds the words like up to everything. So this, that's, are we good? Okay.
I want to get rid of that.
So this is, we're just gonna vote on it if you want it to be changed or not. So again, if we pass the Billy, this comes into effect. If we don't pass the Billy, then it just basically means that you don't have to fill all at-large seats. It leaves a little more flexibility, but there's no real tangible change necessary. Okay? All those in favor of this bylaw change, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This passes. Nope. I did it wrong. Sorry, I'm trying to unhighlight it so we know that this is like not right now. Okay. Can you improve that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Applicants for at-large positions who ran in the most recent electoral cycle will be noted positively as such, as in if you ran for an election, you lost, and you apply at large, the selection committee has to say, okay, we like that you ran, bonus points. Ad hoc session. So that's the only change in this too. All right, all those in favor, is that a question? Okay. All those in favor of this change, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, hand raised. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Maybe, did we talk about this at all?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so, all, wait, hands down, all opposed. I'll allow for a speaker for and speaker against this because it wasn't really discussed today, but that was pretty overwhelmingly in support, so we're gonna rule it in. So that passes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion entered.
Okay.
Motion to go hide in the library.
All right, okay. We're gonna finish by 11 if we keep going at this rate, so please bear with me. The powers of ad hoc, two changes to this one. This change that we're voting on now says that ad hoc senators must be able to initiate legislation. Status quo is that ad hoc senators cannot initiate legislation without a co-sponsor. And then the second part of that is codifying how we appointed Michael and Nicole, which is that if someone leaves Senate for whatever reason mid-semester, we can fill that spot at the discretion of the selection committee and with the approval of all Senate. Okay. All those in favor of these changes, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Okay. Now we are voting on the bill. So now we are voting on the idea that if you do not fill, if there is a vacancy in the Senate because nobody ran for that position will cease to exist. So if you have 42 out of, or no, if you have 44 out of 48 potential spots filled, that is and then you can only take 12 more senators, which is being designated at large, which means your Senate is automatically smaller, does not hit the full 60. The bill also, in this provision, includes that if you are below 43, then you will reapportion spots to add up to 43. Everyone good on this? I'm going to do a hand raise vote for this right away. So all those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay. Raise them high. When I point to you, put your hand down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So that's 22 in favor of. All those opposed, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Do we have 39 people here tonight?
Yeah, there were
Today
45.
we'll leave, because we didn't have
That's 22
Whoa,
plus 18.
you can fix quorum.
What's the
problem?
No,
22
quorum
plus
was a
18
problem.
is 40.
It means that somebody,
6 people left.
You got it.
I don't want to say this again, just in case.
I won.
We need to do a roll call.
Yes. Somebody's called.
I was removed from that.
Okay, yeah, here's the attendance list. Okay, guys, just in case someone's hand, like, you could put down, if someone somebody left, we're gonna do a roll call vote because it's obviously very close and very important.
Aye for the billion.
Wait, also, point of information, this has to be a 2/3 majority.
This is an amendment of the entirety, so it only requires a majority.
Okay, so again, an aye is to add this in, a nay is status quo.
Really quick, so
Yeah.
the amendment needs a 2/3 of 1/2, but the entire bill needs a 2/3.
So because this is it's a bylaw change and not a constitutional change, the entire thing is going to need 2/3, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just point out that like, if you don't have 2/3 on the amendment, you won't have 2/3 on the legislation.
That's not necessarily. And also, I would point out, like, just for the record's sake, that a majority of the senators here think it's a good idea. Like, I'd like to have that recorded.
Alright, so, okay. We're doing a roll call vote just to make sure, okay? So, John's gonna call the names. You can say aye for this. You can say nay against this. You can abstain. Okay?
Alright, beginning now. Senator Wells. Senator Wells.
Nay.
Senator Gilbert.
You can do that next. I don't know.
Senator Gottlieb.
Aye.
Senator Jane.
Nay.
Senator Bennett.
I was like, nay.
Guys, silence, decorum. Senator Mineta.
Aye.
Senator Sullivan.
Nay.
Wait, what? Nay. Senator Caston. Aye?
Yeah.
Alright, please speak up. Senator Speed.
Aye.
Senator Shaw.
Aye.
Senator Gambardella.
Aye.
Senator Glasser.
Nay.
Senator Lozorno.
Nay.
Senator Hardy.
Aye.
Senator Smith.
Nay.
Senator Kadakia.
Aye.
Senator Carrington.
Aye.
Senator Key.
Aye.
Senator Dillinger.
Aye.
Senator Gingotowski.
Nay.
Senator Lentz. Senator Shank.
Aye.
Senator Giselle. Senator Pecoraro.
Nay.
Senator Curtis.
Aye.
Senator Zhang. Senator Zhang. Senator Zhao. Senator Moore. Senator Good.
Nay.
Senator Palmisano.
Nay.
Senator Bullock.
Nay.
Senator Gully. Senator Gully. Senator Sun. Senator Uriah.
Nay.
Senator Farrell. Nay. Senator Howe. Senator Hess.
Aye.
Senator Letty.
Aye.
Senator Barlett.
Aye.
Senator Syke.
Aye.
Senator Tom. Senator Yearly. Senator Torres. Senator Juan. Senator Fogel.
Nay.
Senator Scopus.
Aye.
Senator Thompson.
Nay.
Senator Caldwell.
Nay.
Wait, hold on. Scopus and Thompson, which way did you vote again?
Aye.
Okay.
Nay.
Neighbor Thompson. And Senator Caldwell, nay. Senator Montauk.
Nay.
Senator Camarda.
Nay.
Senator Golchek.
Nay.
Senator Hopkins. Pro Tem Hopkins. Hopkins, are you here?
He left.
All right.
What?
And reported the back.
Okay.
Vice President Lukashi.
Nay.
Vice President Norwalk. Vice President Mazzal.
Nay.
Vice President. No. Vice President Lockhead. Vice President Melbury. Vice President Danner.
Nay.
Will you take out the demonstrative votes?
Who's the best? No, I removed.
You remove them from the table.
How many people voted?
He knows.
We had 4 people at least leave, so.
Yeah, so we should make sure.
Because he was into it.
It failed. Well,
Well,
this
there's
is
19 ayes, 23 nays.
Interesting, because like the other way around, like.
Literally the
Yeah.
other
Because people changed their vote.
Also, it was like equal when I counted.
And we have a total of 42 members, so if anyone wants to know, yes, we do have one.
Okay, that said, we do need to vote to approve the Senate bylaw, which without the Billy, this part goes back to being the normal way, which is that if you run and if there's a spot that's not filled via elections, then it is added to at large, so you can take 17 people at large or 30 people at large. However, remember, we did approve a part that says that at large, or that you don't have, it's up to 60 members. So theoretically, there is a loophole to not take all at large members. So that does still exist. Okay.
Before you go, the thing is very
The
positive.
thing I'm scrolling for. So we have one more thing to upvote or downvote, which says that legislation can be introduced by any member of DSG. So a senator, an ad hoc senator, a member of the judiciary, a cabinet person, or a member of like DSDAP or DUSHAP, Fix My Campus, that is all included in this last clause. Okay? Line monitors, yes. All right. Hey! Yes, my question.
Point of order, information.
Yeah.
Jackson Kushal, is it friendly to remove the judiciary for it, considering that they're supposed to be not for the fourth thing?
Yes. Why is the judiciary on? The judiciary is fine.
Okay.
What?
Okay, hey. We're still voting. I'm taking out judiciary because it's friendly. No other, okay. That said, all those in favor of adding this clause into the Senate bylaw, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Does it say the student body or students in the back? Wait, so some random? No, Jay.
So according to the Constitution, if a student were to get a petition with 15% of signatures from this undergraduate student body, it can be a resolution. Okay, now we need to vote to approve everything that we passed tonight. So everything but the Billy, we need to vote on now. Okay? Yeah.
2/3 to pass this.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those